I need my glasses. How are you? Oh my God. It's been so long since I've seen your face. You know that your hair is all long and in a bob now.
Good to see you.
It's great to see you. Also, Erin, is this one of your students?
That's one of my students. Yes, Erin. I see Erin, Alicia, Gwen, Dave. Dave's my dad.
Oh, your dad. He's not on the camera. He's like, no.
No, that's okay.
Dad.
So I think for a question just to open up with Renee, everyone's already heard about the musical family background that you grew up in. So when did you actually first get into the professional business, would you say?
You know what? I don't know. My mom, I blame it on my mom and dad. You know, they were at all the concerts, Sly and the Family Stone, they were at Woodstock, you know, I mean, my father's a guitarist, so I mean, you know, he'd hang out with Jimi Hendrix and all the people that were just amazing, yeah? So I blame my mom and dad, you know what I mean, for being those rock and roll hippies back then. They're conservative now, but back then. And, you know, for just, I was always around music. So it was in my blood. My brother, he plays 10 different instruments by ear. He writes, he composes. I moved my music out when I would hear it. And so I knew at like 4 or 5 years old, you know, I'd have the hairbrush and I'm going, and do you know what I mean? Just everyone around me, Patti LaBelle, growing up with people like that, Marvin Gaye in my home. I mean, these are some of your classic R&B, do you know what I mean? Legends, you know, so it was just normal, I think, and just natural for that music and the love of performing and the performing arts to happen. So at 4 or 5 years old, I knew. And then by that time that my parents had us, they switched. They went from doing the music and the tours, you know, when you're young, that's when you do it. And then they switched, went back to college and got their degrees in teaching. So my mother's, yeah. So the arts and education, those are my two, like, that are dear to my heart. So, you know, so they did the flip, and then my husband and I did the same thing. You know, we did our touring and our shows and everything, you know, for, you know, being young into our late 30s, early 40s. And I was like, oh, it's time to have some kids, you know, because I was like, oh, the time is ticking. I have 2 teenagers, 16 and 20. My daughter, my oldest, just turned 20 years old. And so now we're on the other end. So I'm coaching and teaching, you know, I'm very active within my community. I serve on a few boards at Rowan University here in New Jersey and a few other colleges, smaller colleges. So the arts and education, that's always been my heart. So we kind of did the same thing that my parents did, that flip-flop.
Yeah. And how old were you when you actually first did your international touring and met your husband?
Oh, okay. Well, let me see. I don't have, I wish I could find that Hershey Park picture, but we met at Hershey Park when we were in college. Okay. So I was in my junior year at Adelphi, and, you know, going to all the auditions and everything. And oh man, I'll never forget, because they didn't have, I remembered I auditioned at Hofstra. I knew I wanted to go to college in New York because that's where Broadway is, right? I didn't know. I was like, I didn't care. I got accepted to Montclair, full scholarship, blah, 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 Rutgers, blah, blah, blah. But 30 years ago, they did not have musical theater departments. Even Hofstra's was separate. Stony Brook didn't have a musical theater program. Adelphi had just started their musical theater program. So, you know, where the dancers and the singers and the actors could all, you know, a BFA. And so that's why I decided to go to Adelphi. But it was my junior year. I was auditioning for shows, and I met my husband at Hershey Park. So, and the choreographers at Hershey Park were doing shows on Broadway. They were doing a chorus line. So here you have this tight-knit circle. You know, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all the stuff, you know, and websites. It was, you know, once you got the show and booked the show, you were on time, you stayed focused, you did your job. You know, I'm like 17, 18 years old doing these theme park shows, but it's with people that were already on Broadway and young producers. And that's how I got into that circle. So it was like, as soon as you got the show, they would just call you, hey, Renee, do you want to come in for the Disney audition? Hey, Renee, do you want to do this? So it was being in that circle, but then showing up, being on time, being quiet until you were, you know, asked the question, you know, because it's very interesting, because this is what I try to teach my students now. Everybody's talented. Talent means nothing. It's, did you do your homework? Did you show up on time? Do you have respect? It's all about that, because talent is a dime a dozen.
Yeah. And I remember, so I first met you when I was 16. I think I was 16 going on 17.
Yep.
Wait, that's almost a song from Sound of Music. Um, but I had met you and you were directing Smokey Joe's Cafe because you had been on the tour production of it, but also you were a standby on Broadway for it. Okay, that's true. Okay. And I just remember hearing all of the stories about you in the business when, if I remember correctly, you know German because you had been touring in Germany on an
Yes.
Andrew Lloyd Webber on Starlight Express, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of shows. Well, actually, it's interesting because my great grandmother, meine Urgroßmutter, war Deutsch. She was half German, Stillman. Yeah, as German as you can get. She married my great grandfather, who was Cherokee Indian and African. So living here in this area in the Pines in South Jersey back then it was pretty amazing. Do you know what I mean? To be able to have like a multicultural family, which I love. And that's one of the reasons why we moved our family back here in this area in South Jersey, because our family heritage, our family legacy. I'm not sure if how many of you have heard of William Still. He helped Harriet Tubman on the Underground Railroad. Yeah, that's my great, 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 great grandfather, 4 generations. Yeah, so I got roots. I got major family roots here in this area. And, it's just awesome to have that family legacy and at the same time, be able to extend it. So Andrew, so that's why I know a little bit of German, but my husband and I, when the Broadway company of Starlight Express closed, they asked us to go to Germany to do the German production. So that was like 30 something. That was a while ago too. that was my second big show right after college. It was like, phoom. And then right away just started booking all these shows. And my husband and I booked them together. So the whole show is in German. The ugliest language ever to sing in. You were spitting. It's like, ich macht mit. And it's just like, it's so guttural. Yeah, it's disgusting. It is. I'm just saying. But the coolest thing is that we would have phonetics every day, and then you had your lyrics and your choreography. Now, we had learned Starlight Express first in German, and then when that show closed, then we went back to the Broadway company and then the US tour. So my husband and I did this 3 times with 3 different shows: Starlight Express, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which was a nightmare because of all those colors. And then I would start in English and then sing in German and then go back and forth. So there was only me from the US tour that was in Germany and a good friend of mine named JC who was in the UK tour, in the British production. So we would hear our names called out. JC and Renee, please go to phonetics. And we're like, crap, because we were the only 2 English speaking, do you know what I mean, in the German company. So they knew when you weren't going, it war blau und grün, red, purple, silver. Like, I would forget my colors in German. So I would just do it, came naturally, which was, we just finished doing a couple of year tour in the States of Joseph. So automatically I'm going right to English or right to German. So what brings me to Smokey Joe's. So I ended up, and it was so nerve-wracking, and Andy, I could share this with you. I remembered getting a call from the producers for Smokey Joe's Cafe from New York. So this is Jerry Zaks, who directs everything on Broadway, who's amazing. At the time, it was Joey McNeely, who was the original choreographer, who I adored, just looked up to him like, oh my God. And I'm in my late 20s. And they call me from Germany. They know that I just finished doing Joseph. Yeah, this was Joseph. Joseph in Germany, in German. So they call me from Germany. I'm like, all right, how'd you even find my number? Remember, this is before the internet, everybody. This is before, they would just track you down and find you. Remember the faxes? Who remembers fax machines? Raise your hand. Yeah, okay. So they're saying, Renee, we're going to fly you into New York City and you're going to audition for Smokey Joe's Cafe because we're doing a European tour. We're going to Germany, Switzerland, blah, blah. We need someone that knows the culture, that speaks German. We want you to do the show and possibly swing. So they send me like 50,000 fax sheets of song and I had less than a week to learn it. I'm like, oh, help me. Like, it was so nerve-wracking. So, beside the jet lag, so I fly there, get to New York, I'm practicing. I have my boa, I have everything, right? My mom, this is before kids, obviously, everybody, before I had my children. And I get to New York and I'm yawning. I'm exhausted because it's a, 6.5, 7 hour flight. Hello, you're going from European time back to New York. And I'm yawning and I'm like trying to stay awake. And I know I had to learn 2 songs, I think, off book within a week, right? And all the choreography. And this is before internet. So this is just writing. This is just with the notes from Jerry Zaks, from the director from Broadway and his assistants. And I get there and Joey McNeely's like, Renee, I know you're tired. I know you're jet lagged, but just sing the song to us, girlfriend. Just relax. Just close your eyes. Pretend we're not there. Closed my eyes, took a big breath, performed it. They looked at me. I looked at them, went outside in the hallway, waited, and they hired me right there on the spot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like, would you say the lesson of that is you had such a network, it seems, where they really looked up to you as, okay, Renee is a professional. She knows the German culture, and she's always going to show up on time. And, and I think if I could tell everyone who's watching this, that was the lesson that I've carried after having you as a director is, show up on time. If you can't make something, message you right away. Yeah. And, make sure that I'm sure you could speak to the story better than I can, but, make sure you dress for the part during rehearsals.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is I love this one because it was so funny. When Andrew and I connected the other day, I had just realized that I remembered this like it was yesterday, because I remember telling, and one of my assistants, his name is Ricky Whitfield. He did Richie and a couple of the Of Course lines. Ricky's at least 15 years younger than me. So he reminds me of my brother, but he's amazing. He's an old soul, old spirit, very organized, very focused. He was doing a production of a cabaret show in Beijing, China, while we were here. And that's when Skype first came out. Him and I are Skyping, choreographing. He's in China. I'm in New Jersey. Literally, we rehearsed, directed, produced it, the whole show on Skype. And we had 2 weeks to teach Andrew and Andy. You were the youngest, I think, and maybe 1 or 2 other high school kids. But I remembered you at that audition. I think I have old clips somewhere, Andy. I'm gonna have to send it to you on my desktop. And I just remembered, he had this bright smile. He was focused. He wasn't yakking and because sometimes it's so noisy, when you're trying to run an audition or you're trying to do a production and you hear all this noise, it becomes, if you're creative, right? How many of you understand that? If you're creative, you can only hear like your voice and maybe one other voice at a time, And I just remembered him just being, because he was nice and long. You were always tall. So he was nice and long and tall. I'm like, how's that boy? He's nice and long. His shoulders are back and he's got like this presence, like already. He was just like, I'm here. And I was like, who's that? Because I didn't, that was my first time meeting you at that audition. And he did an amazing audition. He danced well, but he already had this beautiful voice, but he had this smile and he was just genuine, like, I'm here. So fast forward, we have about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks to put up Smokey Joe's, and it was in the middle of the snowstorm. You remember? Because it was in February. Do you remember that?
There was a blizzard.
And I have adults. We picked some adults that I knew that were jazz singers from New York and Philadelphia, coming in. So it was a mixture. And Andrew got to work with other professional performers that had done Broadway and jazz gigs and singing with like Stanley Turrentine and all these big names. So he had an opportunity to work with these people. And, we'd be driving in, everybody's coming in from different places. Ricky would come in from New York and he would be there on time. He was my dance captain, he was my assistant, and he was in the show. Yeah. And his boyfriend was in the show. Now, if they had to take 2 trains, I had to pick them up, Lindenwold Station to drive down to Main Stage. Now, if he could be there on time, why couldn't my performers from Philly, I would be on them. And I remembered one night, I remember telling everybody, okay, look, it's Smokey Joe's Cafe. It's set during that era, the 30s and 40s. You've got great, music by Benny E. King, Stand By Me. The women are dressed and beautiful. The men have their black slacks on and their suits. We don't have sweatpants on while we're in rehearsals. I think I said this once, right, Andrew? Yeah. Andrew was just as quiet sitting there. This is like the first or second rehearsal, just as quiet. And he's got a notebook. And he's writing something, because remember, we had flip phones. Not everybody had a, cell phone. And he's just writing. And I'm noticing, yes, because that's what I did when I was 15, 16. Do you know what I mean? I would write everything down, You know, I wasn't like, well, I know what I'm doing. I was like, zippity zip, you know what I mean? Until somebody older said, oh, Renee, do you have an opinion or do you want to chime in? But other than that, I better have known my music, my notes. I better have known my blocking, my choreography before I started going, oh, well, I'm fabulous. And I'm, you know, we had a few people, right, Andy, in that show that were just like, and I was like, oh, you need to tune it down or else it's going to be your first and last show with me. And some of them, that did happen. But I remembered saying it once, please don't come with sweatpants or shorts because you're doing a style of a show, you know what I mean? Where the men have the suits and the women do with the dresses and you have to have that line and just that look, right? You know, because it's a showcase, but it's very specific to what this show entails and what the show. And plus, I mean, Jerry Zaks had poured into me all these Broadway directors that I worked with. So now I'm getting ready to pour it to the high school, you know, students and the college students that are there. I'm like, look, if you want to make it to Broadway, let alone Broad Street in Philly, you have to take the notes. You know what I mean? You have to take the notes and you have to apply it. Andrew's over there writing. The next week we come in and look, there's traffic over the bridge in Philadelphia and I know that, but my cell phone's blowing up, my flip phone, Renee, I'm going to be late. It's 15 minutes late. I'm like, I know you're going to be late. You're not here. Do you know what I mean? Don't text me 15 minutes into the rehearsal because then it distracts me from, you know, doing what I'm doing. So we're sitting there and we're getting ready to go up on stage and I'm waiting to check and see who's here. Who took the note from the first week when I said about dressing the part? So I'm talking, I'm like, wait a minute. And who? Andrew's on time. He doesn't even drive. I remember saying that he doesn't even drive and he's on time. You know, and I said, and some of you live down the street and you drive. So don't blame your mom and dad. Oh, my mom and dad didn't drive me. Or, oh, I forgot my didn't. Oh no, they were like 18, 19, 20. They were grown enough to know better. And then I said, and look, Andrew's got his black slacks on. I was like, thank you. Somebody actually dressed the way that I asked them to dress tonight. And Andrew, I just remember you had the smile like, look at me. It was the coolest, sweetest thing. And then Ricky was like, oh, he's sharp. Yeah, he's going to do stuff. He's good. He knows what but Andrew, you totally just took the note and he applied it. And he's 16 years old. You know what I mean? He's taking it all in. And so my eye and my attention and my ear to his talent goes more toward him than it does the people that are like, ooh, look at me. I'm like, yeah, but you were 15 minutes late. You're not dressed right. You know? Mm-hmm. So it's not about the talent. It's about that dedication and who's showing up and who's going to do above and beyond, you know, what the director or choreographer or whomever it is, or your professor asks you to do. Just don't do the minimum. Do not do the minimum. Keep it going. Give me more than that, right? Look, your professor is shaking her head, yes.
Yeah, and you're right. It's such a good lesson and everyone notices that responsible quality about you, and they take notice, and you then will be the one who they'll call when they're looking for the next part, which is what happened for when you then came on to again collaborate and direct Godspell. Yep. And I think which was the next year right after.
I think it was, yeah, it was 2011. I think it was the year right after. And I remembered your name popped up right away because Ricky, I think he was on the cruise ship by then, so he couldn't help out. But him and I had talked about some of the talent, and I said, no, not him, no. I said, what about Andrew? What about Andy? Oh, I want him to do that song, All Good Gifts, because I knew you had this pure, beautiful, light, nice tenor voice, and then the character that you were reading for Godspell. You know, because Godspell, I just think it's such a great show anyway, you know, and we didn't do a lot of crazy nonsense like they did with the movie. We just kept it straight in. And I think, what was that, Andrew? What hurricane was that? There was like a storm or something that year, remember? So I'm trying to remember what it was. It wasn't Superstorm Sandy, but I'm trying to remember what it was.
Yeah, but I think actually, if it's okay with you, I'll show everyone watching. I have a clip of the Godspell performance. Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen with everyone, and hopefully it might take a little while to load, but I'm pretty sure this was used as marketing footage for Godspell.
Okay.
When they came out with it at
Main Stage.
At Main Stage Center for
the one where you're doing the jump thing across the. Is this?
Yes. This is where I do I do the jump across the stage.
I love it.
Okay, let's see. Okay.
It's coming.
It's coming. It's happening. Okay.
I know.
Let's see. And sometimes the audio works better than the video, but
Ah,
we'll get the gist, hopefully.
I know, right? It's like, it's, I hope
Let's
it's
see.
gonna come up.
Here we go.
It looks like it looks like it wants to come up.
I think it's starting. Let's see.
Yay, there it is.
Yay, okay. Good. I'll just back it up a little so it can load. Okay, here we go. So yes, highlights of the main stage production of Godspell. Let's see.
And you guys had like 2 weeks to learn that show too. Everything was 2 weeks and go.
Yeah, that was a quick turnaround.
Oh, they're doing the striped shirt.
Yes, I'm in a striped shirt.
Yeah, it's still glitching though, but
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I'm in the
can't
middle.
say choreography because it's glitching.
Yep.
It looks like a slideshow instead.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
There's a great chasm between us. And no one from your side that wants to cross it can. And no one from our side that wants to cross it can.
There you go.
Yeah, there I go. Okay.
Yeah. It's hard because
Yeah, it's
somebody
tough.
in the chat just said send the link so they can see it because you can't see the movement. It's just too glitchy. But
Yeah.
you
That's a
tried.
good idea. What I'll do is I'll put it in the chat right now so everyone can see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so there was the infamous kick. The toe
Yeah.
touch.
He did
The
like
toe
this big
touch.
kick and it's like stag jump. And I was like, oh, go, Andrew. Because he would always say, oh, Miss Renee, I could just sing. I can't really dance. I'm like, oh, you can dance. Like he would pick everything up. He was a natural. So I would really just push you. I remember in Smokey Joe's, I really just pushed you to
Yes.
do more. So then by the time you finished that show, it was just natural for you to do Godspell with us. And you guys were all chosen, even though we had auditions. I was like, no, because it would take me 45 minutes or 50 minutes just to come down one way to rehearse and work with all of you. And so, for me as a director, plus I was a mom of my children were younger then. And I was like, you know what, I want to work with people and talent that want to learn and create and collaborate together. And we had so much fun doing that show. It was so much fun.
That was such
and instead of, you know what I mean, just, oh yeah, they're talented, but they're always late, or they don't take the note, or and it just gets to be exhausting, when you're trying to teach and you're trying to, create something in a short period of time, for a production company. It's more fun for me to pick people that, that I love to work with, that I know that they're going to bring their A game and have a great time and, bring their ideas and be warmed up and ready and staying healthy, all these things. So that's what I take into consideration when I cast and hire people. It's not always just about, oh, and look at my reel and look at all my resumes, look at all the shows I've done. It's about, are you going to show up on time? Are you going to do your homework? You're 19 and you're blaming that your mom and dad didn't make you a sandwich. I don't think so. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah. Oh yeah. I work with a lot of those. And I'm like, no, you have to work for what you want. Your parents are working hard to give you an education, and to give you opportunities. But now you have to take that and you have to run with that. You just can't sit back and be like, oh, I'm just gonna hang out. My mom and dad, oh, it was their fault. I didn't have my script. I'm like, you're 19, you're in college. Now's the time to learn. Like now, if any time, now's the time to like, now you have to get it together. That's what I used to say. Remember, Andrew, get it together.
Oh yes, that's, I always remember that phrase from you. And actually, I want to show everyone the picture of you at Adelphi. I think it was in a ballet class. It looks like it was a ballet
getting
class.
yelled at.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So here you are. Was this in a yearbook, or how did they preserve
this was in, if everybody can see this, this is like on one of the books, I guess, that talks about the college. It's over 30 years old. Can you all see it? Like this is, one of the books. Look how old it is. It's like, and I remember that day like it was yesterday, because Master Hightower, who was our ballet instructor, was working with ABT and New York City Ballet, and working with Baryshnikov and Gelsey Kirkland. He was in his 70s. He would have the cigarette and he'd be like, rah, 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 with a stick.
Wow.
But then, I mean, he would always be on top of me, and I'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm paying, however much money. It's expensive, right, to go to private college, right? So can't believe I'm paying all this money, and I had scholarship, and this man is yelling at me. Well, you know what? He said, I only yell at and fix the people that I know that will do something. And that junior year, after that ballet, it was like a master ballet class. Even though I was doing musical theater, we had to do everything: ballet, jazz, tap, this, stage crew. It was just a lot. And then my regular, my other credits that I had to take care of: English and sociology and all that other blah, 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 business classes. I was like, why am I going to take business classes? Why? And I'm so glad I did. Because we have a karate school now. I run my own business. So it's so smart. Business, the arts and learning what you're doing with your craft, it goes hand in hand. It really does.
Interdisciplinarity, right? You need to merge these together.
Yeah, it does. It comes together. I mean, I would tell students now, if you know that you love this and the performing arts or any type of art, whether it's, media or visual art, drawing, engineering, music engineering, sound engineering, go for it, do it. And double major or major minor, why not? It's a lot. I know it's a lot, but guess what? You have to have that education, and then you have to have that technical skill blended in if you know what you love and you know what you want to do. You just don't do one thing. And then what happens when you get injured, or you lose your voice, or you don't book the part, or you don't go into Broadway right away, or you don't get a film, TV show, or become a union and have your pension and all that right away? Well, you have to really think of the future of what you want to do, and I'm telling you, being in school, being in college will help you, and it will. I knew at Adelphi, I remembered a few of the girls my sophomore year. They didn't move up to BFAs like in performing arts the junior year, and I was surprised, because I'm thinking, oh, they're just going to take their money. You know what I mean? Be like, oh, they're okay. You know what they told them? They're like, you need to change and do sports medicine or kinesiology or whatever. You're not going to be a ballerina. You're not going to do Broadway. You're not you're not strong enough. And I was like, I thought that was amazing, because, a lot, these colleges, it's like, no, you just can't just, take the money and then you're not giving them what they need. And this was 30 years ago. So I'm sure the colleges and universities have gotten better with that and offering different scholarships. I got scholarships, performing arts scholarships and academic. I did decent in school. English, languages, those were my favorite. The science and the math, I was like, oh, whatever. Okay, yeah, I have to do algebra 2, whatever. But if you're going to be, an engineer and you're national tours or Cirque du Soleil or whatever, you better have that engineering degree. Do you know what I mean? You better have an architectural engineering degree so you can figure out, oh, if I put 10 dancers up on top of here and we're on a hydraulic and we're going this way with vari-lights, hey, are they going to still stay on the stage? And I've performed on these stages, and it was like amazing to listen and watch the crew and these technicians. I would hang out with them backstage just so I could learn. This was in my late 20s, early 30s. So that when I started directing, I was like, no, I want the lighting here. I need that there. Okay, can you guys go here? The hydraulics aren't going to work. It's a collaborative effort. But for me as a performer, I knew that I just wasn't going to perform. You know, they're like, oh yeah, those performers, they don't care about us. Or do you know what I mean? Or they throw their costumes on the floor. Well, do you know some of the costumes from Joseph were like $20,000 to $30,000 for one costume. And this was 25 years ago. One costume, because they would fly them in from London and then put the gold and put all the, you know, all the sparklies and whatnot on them. I have some of my stuff. That's Joseph. This is when I did that show. I'll show you the costumes, how crazy they were. Let's see. See if you can see me. Hold on, I don't know. I got a light bulb in my thing. Hang on. I'm right here. Can you see that? That was one of the cows.
Yes, we say it.
You see that? So, and it's like the whole, do you see these crazy costumes? Do you see, and there was like 20 of them. And you know, I mean, they were all hand painted, handmade. Look at that, crystals. They used crystals on Joseph's stuff.
Wow.
So you're talking, you know, multi-million-dollar productions 25, 30 years ago. So they're like insane now. I mean, well, now nothing's happening now, unfortunately, but do you know what I mean? So, you know, your costume people, they expected that you took care of your costumes. The mics, they'd be like, oh yeah, you guys want to mess around with your mic. They would deduct it from your pay. You would like see $1,000 missing, and guess what? You learned, don't put your mic down because they're going to start deducting from your check. It happened to one of my girlfriends at Starlight Express. She was like, oh, where's the other half of my check? I was cracking up. I was like, girl, because you take it and you can't wrap the cord around the mic pack. Those things are expensive. They're like $5-6 grand now just for one piece of the wire.
Yeah.
Like, so do the math, and you've got 30 mics. Yeah. I mean, wigs, we all had our own separate wigs. You have your own makeup. You have, you know, so everything has its order. And then once you get older and you start realizing, wow, like this, like the Golden Chariot, who knows how much that cost for them to build that thing. And it was on hydraulics. So a couple of us one night weren't in the right spot, and guess what? We almost got run over by the carriage. We're like, get out the way, and you hear the tech, get out the way, you're gonna get hit. You're like, oh my God, you know. So it's all these exciting things that happen. That's why I love live theater. That's why I love the stage. I mean, I've done TV and film and commercial work. It's okay, but live theater, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it.
What I'm gonna do.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. What I'm going to do for everyone, just because of that delay of the video, I'm going to post, Renee has what's called a sizzle reel in the business. Do you want to explain what a sizzle reel is for everyone listening?
Sure, yeah, sure. And it's interesting because I didn't start doing them until like about 7 or 8 years ago. I had an opportunity to go to California, to LA, and work with Jennifer Lopez's choreographer. Wow. That was just blew my mind. It was just incredible. She had worked with Gloria Estefan, Pitbull, J-Lo, and I'm like, what? I'm in LA working with this person. Let me tell you, it was an incredible journey to be able to work. But what I learned was this: being in New York and you're doing theater and on the East Coast, you know, everyone has their, you know, you have your positioning, you know, production team or creative staff, you know, you have your choreographer, your director, your choreographer and your musical director, right? And they work as a team. And usually the choreographer's third. I'm used to always being third or last, and then you have your assistants. Well, in California, in LA, when you're doing commercial work and creating as a choreographer, they give you so much more responsibility. I was doing video work and they were like, oh no, well, Renee, you're actually the director on this set and you've got 15 minutes to get these dancers from here to here. I'm like, huh? Like, it was like the hardest, like, I was like, in my mind, I was like, okay. And I'm turning around going, wait a minute, I would never be able to touch the cables because that's IATSE, that's union. You never touch a cable, you don't touch a camera, you don't touch a microphone until they tell you, oh, it's okay for you to touch it. So being out in California, doing the commercial work as a choreographer, as a director, creative director, was the total opposite. So I have Jennifer Lopez's choreographer yelling at me to tell the sound crew, oh, you need to be over here and you need to do this. And it was like, it was one of the most amazing experiences that I've had in a long time, you know, but literally I was in California. I hated the traffic and whatever else was like, whatever. The beach was nice, but other than that, it was stress because you're working like this around the clock because it's a commercial or it's a TV show, then it's done. Whereas in New York on Broadway, you rehearse for 2-3 weeks and then you have your show and it's set. right? You go and do your thing, you know, and have your afternoons free. And then at 6:30, 7 o'clock, you check into the theater, you get your makeup on, you do your vocal rehearsal, you do your dance warm-up, and it's the same exact show.
Mm-hmm.
In Californian TV, dance and stuff, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's the opposite. And you have
It's a
like
rush.
10,000 people yelling at you.
Yeah, it's like you need to get this done right now because time is money.
Oh, and the money out there was because, you know, you have movie and TV and film, they get a lot more than we do, obviously. Do you know what I mean? For stage and stuff, our budgets are big, but they're not as big as Hollywood. Think about it. And the movies and TV. Yeah, that was insane. I did really well. I was there for 3 weeks. Couldn't tell my family. They kind of kidnapped me and took me away because it was for a reality show. But at the same time, I was literally on set and on like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning. Renee, wake up! We're going here today, huh? Like it wasn't like there wasn't a set schedule. You know, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym. Well, you need to wear makeup. I don't wear makeup when I go to the gym. Well, this is California. This is Hollywood. And I was kind of like I was so over that. Like in New York, it's like, hey, I'm from New York or Long Island. Hey, how you doing? You know what I mean? Go do your thing and call it a day. You know, and then you're all zhuzhed up, of course, for your opening night or a show or, right, going to a cabaret. Not zhuzhed up just to walk down the streets of LA, but that was a whole nother thing. But here's Starlight Express real quick. I can show you a picture. There's a picture of my husband and I that was on either the German production or whatever. Look at the crazy makeup. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It's insane. And this was the US tour. Hang on, let me see. And this show is one of the hardest shows that I've ever done in my entire life. The German production that my husband and I did 30 years ago just celebrated 31 years, but because of COVID, they shut down. Hopefully they'll be picking back up in Germany, but they built a huge theater for the show. I could try to show you some of the, hold on. I'm trying to find where I am in the book. It's crazy makeup. I was one of the electronic components. I don't know where I am.
That's it.
Oh, right there.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, and that's my husband in this picture as Bobo racing. Can you see like the costumes? There's like 45, 50 pounds of costume on your head every night. 8 shows a week. So
and do you roller skate the whole time?
The whole entire show is on skates, and you're singing and dancing with 40 to 50 pounds of costume on. Let me tell you, that was the best show, the hardest show I've ever done in my entire life. Any show after that was easy. Hang on, let me see. This doesn't show you. Kind of does. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it looks like an arena.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And then you're rolling on walls, like you know the skateboard parks.
Yeah.
Like the walls are 30 feet high. And you're coming down a ramp at 30 miles an hour. That was insanity. Like when we were young, you're like in your 20s, you're like, whoa, I could do it. I'm invincible. But guess what? I would listen. You better stretch. You better done the skate warm up. You better make sure you have your safety gear on. And I had like scrapes and scratches and stuff from the show. You know, my husband and I had small injuries, but nothing like some of the, let me see. Yeah, let me see. Oh, here we go. Oh, here's a good one. And this is just of the U.S. tour set. It's not even the German production. Hold on, let me see.
Wow.
Can you see that?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good. Yeah, I think if you bring it down a little more.
Oh, okay.
Yep, there you go.
Tell me where. Yeah, there you go.
Yep, right there. Wow.
Okay, so do you see the bridge, the hydraulics? They had, let me see, our team, I don't even remember how many. We had the largest, I think at that time, when we were touring the United States with the show and it closed on Broadway, we had the largest crew. Cats was the second largest crew. But we had the first largest crew. They would just drive those rigs and those trucks. We would fly everywhere, thank God. But they would drive everywhere because you needed like, you know, not just like the rigger designer, but the hydraulics to the bridge. You needed somebody that knew how to do the hydraulics and run that. The lasers, the vari-lights, because back then you couldn't look into the lasers. Now you got lasers and vari-lights at rock concerts all the time. Back then they were just beginning. This was 30 years ago. Yeah. So, I mean, can you like, you know, how advanced the technology was then, it's even more so now. I mean, Cirque du Soleil, those shows in Vegas, they're like doing like, you know, aerial silks and then, you know, rocketing people out. It's so cool. Like the technical part, I always, even when I was young, I used to geek out on the technical part because I just thought it was amazing at how they created all this. And when they told you, you need to stand here, guess what? You better listen. because you'll be run
Like you
over.
said, you might get run over by scenery.
Yeah, I almost got run over by the sheep in Joseph. I almost got run over by the sheep because we couldn't see, and my headpiece, I wore like this big spinning wheel. I don't have a picture of that. And it got twisted, and my thing was coming down, and we're exiting, and I'm like, I can't see. They're like, Renee, you're gonna get run over by the sheep. I was like, yeah, just crazy, and that's what I love about live theater is something happens every night. You think it's the same show, but no, it's not. Somebody loses their skate wheel, and somebody stepped on somebody's tail and cats, and their whole backside was out, and we were just laughing the whole entire time. Like we couldn't help it.
Speaking of your
Disney,
recent,
hold on, Disney. I got some younger pictures of me when I worked for Tokyo Disneyland when I was 19.
wow, look at that.
You see that?
Yes. Wow.
I know. I couldn't find the ones with me and Mickey Mouse, but I used to dance with Chip and Dale at the end, and we were outside of the Magic Castle, and they would tell me, "Oh, Renee, you guys don't do the, you would do the hand swing thing, and you would flip, and then your chipmunk would flip." Well, Chip from Chip and Dale lost his head. He lost his hands. He went flying into the flower pit. I was laughing so hard I was crying. They had to turn my microphone off. I was like, I'm so sorry. They were like, Renee, you can't lose your chipmunk. You cannot lose your, like the Mickey Mouse, like I never did character work, but Mickey Mouse and all them, you guys are dancing and they're spinning it and their head goes off and they can't see. And all the little kids are crying because they think Mickey Mouse is dead. And it's just hilarious.
Well, and
I loved working for Disney. We had some fun.
yeah, but what I just love about talking with you is you carry all these stories with you, and they're all lessons that you've curated. And I think, something to speak to the moment is I want to show everyone a few pictures of the recent Tarzan production just to show,
Oh, okay, yes.
what did the stage look like that you said had to be built, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so, and it was outside the Elmwood Zoo, right?
Right, in Norristown, Pennsylvania, like a good 45, 50 minutes from where we live, or, and your mom and dad are, going out toward King of Prussia in that area, Montgomery County. So, their COVID numbers were really great, really low. So that's why they decided that they would give our theater company the thumbs up to start rehearsing and producing. But this was amazing. Yeah, as you can see, and it was 30 to 40 feet from the parking lot. So if you're looking at the stage, the parking lot was back where you would be, where you're looking at the photo.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just amazing to be a part of that. We rehearsed the whole month of August, and we had to take temperature checks. Our stage manager, Zach, was amazing. Our head stage manager. Yeah, do you want to pull up another one, Andrew?
Yeah, sure. I'll pull up the one with the cast. There you go.
Yeah, while I'm talking. Yeah, he was amazing during the rehearsal time because they had to build the set. So we had a little bit of time, but we would still practice outside under like those big gazebo tents. And he would just kick us all out and just spray everything down and be like, don't touch this. Don't breathe on that. He was amazing because of course that was his job to keep us all healthy and safe. And as well, this theater company that I worked for, I did a couple of shows for them last year. They've only been in production for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So, you had some of the people are like, oh, what are they doing out there? Are they crazy? It's COVID, blah, blah, blah. But, we followed everything that needed to be done, through Governor Wolf in Pennsylvania. And they gave us the thumbs up. They gave us the green light to be able to do the show. And we were sold out. That's me and that's the opening, that's opening night. No, that's not. It's at a rehearsal, I think. But I don't know if you can see the masks, the gorilla masks. Okay, so in underneath of those masks, our sound engineer built a plastic. Yeah, because how when you have your mask on, when you breathe in as a singer, you're sucking, of course you're sucking your own mask, which I think is disgusting. But they built this plastic, almost like a plastic like mouthpiece, like if you're like playing football or a sport. And then what they did was they went up through their wigs, how you have your mics and it's coming down either here, it came through where the mask was. Amazing. So so they're anchored in, and I think then they had filters put on on like another layer on top as well. And, you know, we had to test drive it, you know, a few times at some of the sound checks and stuff, because some of the masks were moving too close to the mics were moving too close to the inner part of the mask. So we had to make sure that they tweaked them. They touched everything. We didn't touch anything, you know. And then our sound engineer was brilliant. He was amazing. He was like, all right, everybody, once it's on, leave it alone. Keep your hands clean and don't touch anything. So, so literally, like, they were being told that every day. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I was hearing that every day for 3 weeks that I had rehearsals with them. Don't touch anything. Don't, you know, don't go over here to this person. But we had some people that were brothers and sisters, some people that were quarantined together that were college students that we had recast and we rehired. And I figured that was like the smartest thing, you know? So instead of having an ensemble of 20, we only had an ensemble of 10. And then we only have 5 leads. And our Tarzan and Jane were best friends. So I was like, oh, that's perfect. So when they got to do their songs and their singing, they were able to unmask with one another, but they were still far enough apart.
You recreated kind of what everyone's been talking about with the NBA, that bubble. Like, you created your own kind of musical theater bubble with the cast.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we really did. And it was interesting because like a lot of their families came to see the show and stuff like that, like outside, you know, like, and what I thought was really neat, I don't know how they did it. I know that all the tickets were sold online, but then they had it where it was scanned, where they would come, you know, they would come into the zoo, into the park, and we had volunteers with their masks on. They scanned their temperatures, and then they scanned their phone, and then their number from where they were supposed to park their car in the parking lot was already there. And it was like these big signs, neon signs, you know, car number 1, and then this family name, car number 2, and it was like staggered. So it was like amazing. Like opening night, I'm sitting there watching this, like, this can work. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it took a lot of creativity. It took tons of planning, It was like, no, that's not going to work. Nope, that's not going to work. Okay, nope, that's not going to work. And we just kept hashing it out and hashing it out. But once we started seeing the vision of the stage being built, and the tresses and the lighting and everything hung, the way that they did the costumes and the way that they were able to mask and mic everybody, then we were like, yep, we're golden. You know, they felt safe, like the talent felt safe, and we felt safe. And that's so important. We had like families with little kids up on top of their, you know, like on top of their SUVs, and they're having their little popcorn and stuff, because it was 30 feet away, but it was so large. You know what I mean? The stage was so big that, you know, we didn't need screens on the side or anything like that, that you could really hear it and see it. And where we were was like kind of dipped in the valley. So guess what? You already had natural acoustics. So like the sound was just like, I was like, one night it was so heavenly, because the stars, it was so brilliant. You know, all the stars were out. And I think you could see, what was it, Saturn or Jupiter, one of the moons, remember a few weeks ago, where it was so bright. And you could just see all the stars. And I'm like, this is the perfect show. Tarzan, socially distanced, in the jungle. We're literally in the jungle. So it was, you know, it was a win-win. It was a win-win for our theater community. It was a win-win for being able to hire the musicians and the talent, because nobody was working. So it was a way for, you know, and then the families were like, oh, we haven't seen live theater. I mean, they're used to going to the Metropolitan Opera, or, you know, the Pennsylvania Ballet, or they're used to going to the Philly Pops, or doing something in Pennsylvania. And there was like nothing for 6 months, you know? So people were just like, we're driving to Tarzan. You know, it was amazing. And of course, you know, we had stuff on social media as well too. And, you know, these are the safety protocols, and everything's been approved, because, you know, you're always going to have your naysayers as well. Oh, what are they doing? That can't be done. Oh, yes, it can, if it's done correctly, you know, if you take the proper procedures. But, you know, now it's getting cold. Last weekend was our last shows. It was 40 degrees. They were like this. I did a live thing. I'm like, how are you guys doing? They're like, we're freezing. So they bought like little heaters, you know what I mean, for them to be outside there having hot chocolate with a hoodie on before they go out and dance in the jungle, because it was 40 degrees last week. But, you know, I mean, and it was a full audience out there as well too. And the director, the artistic director of the company said, thank you, everybody. I know it's cold. I know some of the families didn't care. They were like, we are out hearing live music with live orchestra, with dancers and singers. You know, we had silks. They were swinging it. Tarzan and them were swinging in and out, doing flips. It was like this whole, you know, it was a lot of work. It was. And it wasn't me teaching the choreography and us doing the direction. And it wasn't that. It was the protocol, of staying safe, staying healthy, don't touch this, do that's what was the hardest challenge.
Yeah. So, and it seems like that's the optimistic lesson here, like you're saying, is thinking yourself out of this prescribed box, like going back to the roots of the amphitheater, which is actually where theater began in ancient Greece.
That's right.
So we're back to our basics again.
That's how I feel. Yeah, back to our roots. I mean, if there's an amphitheater, we have quite a few amphitheaters in South Jersey in our area too. Nobody did anything all summer, and I was surprised. But I just think because our numbers were higher, and Governor Murphy was like, rah, rah, rah. I was like, oh, whatever. But you have to follow proper protocol in whatever state you're in. So between New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, definitely different. For me, I was just so excited that I was actually going to be creating live people again, not Zoom and not videos. And because after a while, it's exhausting in your eyes. I got to get my glasses on. My eyes are tired. I'm tired. But then I'm driving and I'm like, oh wow, I've had a whole tank of gas for 6 months because I hadn't gone anywhere. Trapped in my house. So it's like, oh, this is kind of fun. And then I was like, oh, I'm tired because I've gotten out of my routine. I'd either be driving up to Hamilton, Princeton area to go to New York to do work, or I'm either driving into Philadelphia or you know what I mean? So I'm either in New Jersey, New York, or Philadelphia or Pennsylvania. I wasn't going anywhere. So it's kind of like we start to get sluggish and tired and a little lazy. And I was like, oh no, I have somewhere to go. Like it was so great. I had a purpose, and that's important, I think, too, especially during COVID, for our students, for your students, and my professors, the professors I'm speaking to as well. I'm sure it's hard to, to continue to keep your staff motivated, to continue to keep your students motivated so they don't go in this spiral of, oh no, when are things going to open? And I feel like it's been a real challenge. We've seen that with our students in our karate school, and I've seen that even with my my own children. My own son, he's a junior this year, he's 16, and he's like he's doing 100% remote right now, and we'll wait and see if he's going to do the hybrid for a couple days. But he'll go out and do basketball, he'll ride his bike, his BMX bike and stuff. But we need interaction. We're people, we need to have human contact. And especially for those of us that are creatives, right? And we love teaching, and we love, being larger than life and sharing. You can only share but so much on the Zoom. You can only share but so much on your WebEx meetings. We got to be there real time for each other. And that experience for me with Tarzan, a couple of nights when I would come home, I mean, I didn't cry in front of them because I had to focus on, okay, what do we have to get done? But, I'm crying tears of joy, because I'm like, this is so great. I get to see my dancers again and be with the orchestra pit and actually share and talk about ideas, and just being physically in a physical space with somebody else other than my family was like, but we're outside and it's gorgeous outside and you got the fresh air. But it was a beautiful, overwhelming experience.
Yeah, and I know you and I have talked about this, which is that the Northeast suburbs are positioned in a really interesting way, where I always, I like that theater history of when shows would do tryouts.
Yes.
Most of the tryout places were New Hope,
yep,
Philadelphia, Atlantic City.
Yep.
And like that kind of stopped happening. And I think now there's a new opportunity of, oh, let's try out these Broadway productions in the suburbs.
I hope so. I really hope so, because that's, I mean, they were just, and it's interesting because we've gotten so technologically sound and safe with all these big productions. And I'm like, no, strip all that away. You've got a great score. You've got great singers and dancers and actors. You can come together and do a cabaret, or you can come together and do, a reading, like a table read, or a little bit better than a table read of a show that's new, that's different, that you don't need all the glitz and glam. Sometimes you don't. If you just strip things away, like you were saying, old school amphitheater style, it just makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
Oh, Susan, I'm afraid I have to leave. Okay. She has an appointment, but oh no, I want Susan. I want you to speak. I want you to say hello and what you do. I want to know who you are, please. Before you leave.
Oh, thank you. I don't want to take people's time away from you. This has been so fabulous. I just am so uplifted by your spirit, your dedication. Oh, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I'm going to go try to find everything you've done and watch it.
Oh, you're welcome. So Susan, what do you do? Please tell me what you do really quickly, and how you and Andrew are working together, and what you do at Stony Brook. This is important for me because I love education.
I mainly try to keep up with Andrew and offer what guidance I can, but he's always so far ahead of me that it's just a delight to work with him. I feel we're much more collaborators than teacher-student.
Nice.
And I teach 19th century American literature, and over the past few years, Andrew and I both have been exploring Walt Whitman much more fully. We started working on events to celebrate Whitman's 200th birthday, and we've just both kept on with courses on Whitman, public projects, collaborations with the Art Museum, and so I feel very lucky to be able to work with the wonderful students at Stony Brook, including Andrew.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your gift of education and English and the languages. And it's so important for us to know that, you know, no matter what we end up doing with our careers, English, and because that was one of my favorite subjects as well too, and Shakespeare, and digging into the different dialects and the poetry. And it's so important. It just makes us more well-rounded as people.
Well, and you bring it all alive and spark that excitement in people. So yeah, we work together.
Yes.
But I'm afraid I have to go. I have a dental appointment of all things.
Yikes.
But, I would so much rather be here, let me tell you. But I'm sorry to interrupt, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to meet you.
Thank you, Professor Shekel.
And thank you, Andrew, for arranging this. And I'm glad it's being recorded because I know not everybody could make it at this time, but now everyone can benefit. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you so much for educating our youth. Yes. And for pouring your wisdom into this next generation, because we need that.
Well,
thank you so much.
It is a privilege. And I learn every day from this.
That's how I feel.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks.
So I think maybe before we take a few questions, would you like to perform your a cappella piece that you prepared for us?
Oh, okay. You want me to work now? Okay, fine. No. Hey, Dad. How are you?
Wait, they're muted.
Oh, I can't hear them. Yeah, they're muted.
Yeah,
I'm here with Mom and Dad.
How you doing?
How are you?
Hello, Renee.
It's so good to see you. It's been so long.
Yes, it has.
That's all. You're still looking great. Look at you. Your parents are young still. They don't have no grays or anything.
They are. They're young in spirit and age. Sometimes. No. They are. They're very good.
You're still down in Blackwood, right? In that area, right?
Yeah, Washington
Township, yes.
Washington Township. That's right. Yeah. Your parents haven't moved, right? They're
still in Washington Township.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, that's what I thought. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Okay. I'll do a little something for everybody.
Well, thanks for working on your day.
I'm like, oh man, I had to put clothes on and put some shoes on. Oh man. Okay.
I like Renee. I like that you gave a shout out that students should take business classes.
Yes.
I like that you said that because I teach business in a high school.
Well, you know what? They don't call it show business for nothing. You have to know your business. You have to know about your contracts. You have to know about your finances, how to save, how to invest. These things are so super important. I'm glad that in the state of New Jersey now, you know, with the high schools, junior high and high schools over, I think, the last 10, 15 years, they've put in finally financial literacy.
Right.
Finally, they put that in there because both of my children went through it. And I'm like, yeah, you have to, you know, our parents taught us when we were young, you know.
I teach that.
Yeah,
I hear you. I agree.
Because then, you know, once you get to college and then, you know, if you're not doing the scholarships or the Pell Grants or whatever, it's expensive. And not every single student needs to go to a full 4-year university. Some may do a 2-year junior college and then transfer or whatever, because it makes no sense if you get a piece of paper and you don't know what you want to do, and now you've got $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in debt, and now you have to stay with mommy and daddy. Don't do it, because they love you, but they don't want you to live there forever. Am I right, Mom? Am I right? Amen, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it's harder now because now we have COVID and there's so many other issues and things that are going on. But, you know, prayerfully, when we get past this, you know, the students, you really need to really figure out, wow, okay, whatever I'm going to do, whatever I love, and you have to pursue your passion. I would say go 100%. Don't let anyone ever talk you out of your dream. That was for me. I knew that. I was like, everybody's like, oh, well, it's going to be hard. I'm like, I don't care if it's going to be hard. I know I'm good. Do you know what I mean? And then when I went to college in New York, then I was like, ooh, I really need to be on my A game, because these dolls are not playing in New York City. You know, being cute in South Jersey and dancing at the top of my class was cute back then. But then I got to New York, I was like, oh, let me pay attention. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, when you're around people, you want them to either be on the same level as you or higher than you, because that's how you're going to achieve excellence, and that's how you're going to keep pushing yourself. But you have to have those goals. I say, write it down, make it plain, you know, have your family with you, have your teachers and, you know, or your coaches that really believe in you with you. You don't need a whole bunch of people. I had like 2 best friends in high school. That was it. That's all you need. Because everybody else is like, oh, you're not going to be on Broadway. Went back to my 10-year anniversary. My husband and I were flying in from Switzerland. You know what I mean? They had already seen me in 3 shows, and you know, so you know, you have to stay focused. You can't listen to the noise. And I think, Andrew, there's a lot more noise out there than when I was growing up, because you have, I just don't know. You have too much of this, and nobody wants to work, and nobody. I don't get it. Like, the work ethic is not what it used to be. Do you know what I mean? You're an old soul, Andrew, right? Mom and Dad, you raised an old soul, because he was like 16, like, okay, yes, thank you. Like, he wasn't like, yeah, okay, you know, like, no manners, you know. I mean, I have some students that I've coached, and I'm like, no, it's not, hey, Renee. I'm like, I'm old enough to be your mom. I could be your grandma. It's Miss Renee. Like, there's no, you know, hey, girl. No, there's none of that. You know, you have to have etiquette, you know, and that comes from your parents teaching you. So thanks, Mom and Dad, you know, and if your parents didn't teach you, now your educators and your professors will teach you that, because you need that as well too. You have to, you just have to have that type of persona. You just can't do and say whatever you want.
Yeah, and
right,
to
Andrew?
Listening to you, you know, you know, Renee's advice is very similar. I learned from under your direction and tutelage, which is to always ask if you need help too, to not be afraid if you have questions. And, you know, that's why with my students, they'll tell you, I'm always offering, hey, do you need to meet with me? Here's resources. I know they're going to be analyzing Into the Woods soon. That's our musical. Yep. And they know my love of musical theater is in almost everything I do. So, you know, like you said, literature, musical theater, there's so many disciplines that are connected together.
Yep. Business, having organizational skills, you know, technical skills, even if it's just basic technical skills for computer. You need to know how to run. Well, most of the kids, but my kids know how to do more than on my phone than I do. You know, I try to keep up. But, you know, because you need that, you know, during COVID, you know, I'm on a Zoom meeting here and I'm on this meeting here. And, you know, you have to be able to adapt and to be able to learn, especially these days. You know, long gone are the days where, you know, you graduate college, you go right in, we used to go right into jobs. You would go right into a job. You'd stay at that job till 50, 60, 65 years old, pension, health insurance, dental, right, Mom and Dad? Remember those days? Not anymore, you know? So now, you know, this next generation, you all need to be on top of that. So that means how much more important is your education? It's so important. And hands-on training and learning and being mentored and guided. It's so, I can't express it enough. It's so important. And being open, like Andrew, like you said, you know, you would ask questions. I used to ask questions all the time when I was up in New York. I'm like, all right, I know I don't want to get yelled at. Excuse me, can I ask a question? Some classes you didn't, and some classes like, I don't know what you're talking about, you know? And then, you know, if you're honest, then they're like, oh, well, this is what you need to do. But I made sure I paid attention, because they were only going to tell me once. Do you know? And I'm like, all right, wait, what did you say? I have notes till this day. Books. I have books from my professors from New York, and then the shows that I did right out of college, right on Broadway, thick books this big, you know, from Aunt Arlene Phillips and Angela Weber and all these amazing, I got to work with them so young. I'm like 17, 18, 19, 20. You know, you think you know everything when you're that young. No, I didn't, but I'm like, whoa, I'm learning from the best right now. Let me absorb. You know, and then now I'm able to give that to my students. I'm like, you know, you're saying, oh, Miss Renee, I don't feel like doing that. I'm like, do you think I said to Angela Weber, oh, I don't feel like singing that note? No, you just do it. right, Andrew? I'm like, you just do it, but you don't have an attitude about it. You're just like, okay, well, can I try this or that? You can collaborate with someone, but
yeah.
but once you start having that tone of, girl, I know what I'm doing, I'm like, all right, bye,
And once there's that I'm better than you attitude in any profession, but especially what I've seen in musical theater, that person who thinks they're all that, no one's very interested in talking with them.
No, and then they don't work. They don't work because they're the problem. What they end up doing is they take the picture and the resume. Look, I found an old photo, found an old headshot. How scary is that? I think that was like from the 90s, 80s.
Oh,
I don't know what
wow.
they do. But they will take that photo and they will go, oh, thank you, and they'll throw it in the trash. They will I've seen that happen because I'm on the other end now. So they're like, oh yeah, they were talented, but they had so much mouth, or they were being nasty in the waiting room, and oh yeah, or in the bathroom, and you don't know who it is, like really quickly, which was amazing. My family and I, we did a commercial spot for T-Mobile last year in New York City. We booked it and we shot it, and some of the promos are finally coming out, and I remember going to the bathroom. It was for the callback. We were in New York. I remember going to the bathroom and talking to this lady, and she was one of the producers. But you never know who it is, you know what I mean? And she's like, oh yeah, I'm one of the producers on the commercial that you're getting ready to book. And I'm like, oh hi. Like, you just never know. You just never know who you're going to meet and what you're saying and what they're saying. So yeah, really very wise, for us to, just be aware of who's in the room, who's around. I mean, that's what you, I'm sure, are doing, and teaching your students as well too, because once they graduate Stony Brook, they want to be able to get a job, right? And, or shadow an internship and then move their way up. So you just never know who people are and how they're connected. So, I always say, look, treat people how you want to be treated, with respect, and care and patience. And we need that even more so these days in our world. We really need that. And,
And also, I'm sure your advice is probably what I've told my students, which is, especially with social media, that's not the platform to drag people and to trash talk anyone in the business. Because they're going to find out. Word gets back to everyone.
Yeah, I got stories for you for later, but because
yeah, we'll talk about that later.
No, but that's happened already. Somebody was like, oh yeah, I was out partying late and blah 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 blah, and I'm like, oh, that's why you're not in the class right now. They got fired. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm sure you all talk about that for the students at Stony Brook. Watch what they're doing and putting online or whatever when you're, when you're going for, your college admissions and for, for life, right? For professionalism. You don't want to have crazy stuff up on your website. You shouldn't have crazy stuff up on your website, and for me, I try to stay, I have two different Facebook pages. I have my website as well, but I have like more of a professional one that has all my clips and things like that. And then I have my general one, but my general one, I mean, I know people from everywhere, for me, it doesn't matter. And I'll say it again, and I say it a lot. It doesn't matter to me if you're black or white, straight or gay, Democrat, Republican, we're all human. We're all people. We need to respect each other. As soon as somebody puts something on there, I'm like, delete. Don't put garbage on my website. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll share about what I'm doing, and I'll share about my family. Do you know what I mean? And if you read further in and further down, you'll get to know who I really am, and what my morals are and what my beliefs are. But I'm like, nope, I'm not going to trash you. You don't trash me. Do you know what I mean? And we're all humans. We're the human race.
And you're such a loving, like, everyone who's listening to you, I know if this is the first time they're hearing you, there's such an authenticity and empathy that you share as an educator and as just a performer. And it really comes through. Like, you care about the people you work with.
Yeah, I really do. Like, it feels interesting because even before I became a mom, I was always like the high school student that was like, oh yeah, Renee's the designated driver and Renee's the mama. I was like nicknamed mama, like high school and college, because I was like the one that was like, ooh, because I didn't want to get in trouble, right? Mom and dad, like I still have that, that fear and that honor of God and mom and dad and my grandma. And I'm like, okay, look, this is what we're going to do. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, mama, I can't drink and drive, so can you drive me home? Yeah, get in the car. That was always me. So when I became a mom, and I became a mom at such a late age, in my late 30s, it was like a blessing to me. People are like, Renee, do you miss performing? I'm like, oh no, I got Mama the Musical. That's what I tell them. I'm like, look, I'm the chef, I'm the cook, I'm the stage manager, I'm the costume designer, I'm everything. Like, you know, when my kids were little, it was just like amazing to me that I had the honor and the privilege to be their mom. It's such a blessing. And I was able to stay home. Why? Because, as your mom said, because of the business and finances that we were able to save and put away. Do you know what I mean? To start my husband's karate school and for me to be able to be home so I could be with my own children. I didn't want to have somebody else raising my kids. I wanted to raise my children. That was my job. And then I went, oh, well, they're 10 and 11. Let me go and do a show here. You know what I mean? Or let me go choreograph there. But I would be home by the time my children came home from school because 3 o'clock, they get off the bus, they got homework. And that's my job. You know what I mean? Making sure that they got their homework done and they've got their snacks and they got bath time and they're ready for bed. Because why? My husband, we flipped it. His dream from 9 years old growing up in the Bronx in New York was, I want to own my own karate school because that's what kept him off the streets and out of the gangs, was staying focused and having martial arts discipline. My dream when I was 4 was, I'm going to travel the world and tour and do shows. So we did my dream first and then we flipped and now we're doing his goal and his dream. Wow. You know what I mean? So you have to, you know, I mean, when you're a couple and that's how you intertwine with one another, you know, and there's sacrifices and things that happen, but it makes sense as you get older. I knew I wasn't going to be 40 and 50 years old, dragging my kids around on tours and being married 2 or 3 times. No, thank you. Being married once is hard enough. It's hard, right? Amen. Right? Mom and dad are going, one time, uno, that's it. You know, and we're coming up on 32 years. 32 years we'll be married in November.
I think I see.
We got married young, but we were the old souls. You know what I mean? We were like, all right, let's do my dream. Let's tour the world and travel and do shows. And then I'm going to have the kids. And then you have your dream and do the karate school. And it was smart. It was good business. You know what I mean? That's how you layer. And then so our children are learning that, yeah, you can do it all. You need to plan it in stages. You know what I mean? But you need to have a plan. And you need to, you know, be your own business person and know where your finances are going and know what you want to do in your life and your career and your goals, you know, but it can work. So I try to be that person that's encouraging. I don't like saying, oh, you can't do that. I'm like, yep, let's see if we can make it happen. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to hear the younger generation's dreams because everyone's always telling them, no, you can't do something. And that's not good for us to say no. You know what I mean? We need to feed into them and say, you know what? Yes, you can do it. Okay, but have you thought of A, B, C, and D? Oh, okay, well, what about this? And that's where the mentoring, you know, and because we're older, hopefully we're supposed to be wiser. I hope I'm getting wiser as I'm getting older, that, you know, well, okay, this is the route that I took. Maybe you can do this, but it might not work out for you this way. Like a couple of my dance students, they've gone on, one's at Rider right now. One had a full 4-year scholarship to Boston U. Her 3rd year, junior year, her parents are calling me crying, going, okay, she's going to lose the scholarship. She just had fun. She just went to party at BU. And I had to call her and be like, hello, you need to do your work, you know, because the mom and dad were like, she's not going to listen to us. She'll listen to you. Now she's a Philadelphia Eagles cheerleader and she's a teacher. She's a preschool teacher, but you know, she went to Boston U on a full 4-year ride. What? As a dancer, as a performer. So she got her education, then flipped the degree and went into early childhood education at Rowan. And now she's a preschool teacher and an Eagles cheerleader. I'm like, I'm so proud of her. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it can be done. Like the dreams, you can make it happen. But like sometimes you need those people to, you know, be on you. You know? And like, all right, now you need to focus.
It's okay for you to make the mistake, but then you have to listen to the feedback. And you have a choice to now rectify, you know, the mistakes that you're starting to make. Like you can always climb back up the hill.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amen. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It's never too late. No matter how far we go, it's never too late to turn back and stay on that path. But then it's like, who are the voices that we're listening to? Who are we listening to make sure? And mostly it's mom and dad. They ain't never gonna leave. You know what I mean? Our parents and our grandparents, they're going to keep it pushing. They're going to keep us moving. and I'm grateful for my mom and dad and my grandmother. She passed away a few years ago at 96. I miss her every day, but I can just hear her saying, Renee, you just keep going. You just keep shining your light, sweetie. And you just love everybody no matter what. And that's important. I carry that in my heart because my grandma was like that. She'd be like, oh, you want some food? There's my husband there. She's like, Andrew's waving too.
Yeah.
He's saying hi. You want to come say hi real quick?
Yeah.
Come say hi real quick?
Sure. Hello.
Hey, hi.
That's
Nice
Peter.
to see
That's
you.
my husband. Peter. That's Andrew. Andrew was in Smoky Joe's and
Oh,
God's
cool.
fell with me, and
Wow.
now he's at Stony Brook, and that's his mom and dad. His parents
Wow.
there. I haven't seen in like 10 years. and then we had some other of his students.
Oh,
So
great.
he's up for his PhD in English at Stony Brook.
Very exciting.
Yeah, and you're from the
That's-
Bronx. So
that
you have
is
the
not
New York.
that is not a small task.
Yeah, and you have the New York connection because you were born and raised.
Yeah, he's the Bronx boy.
Yeah, my students are going to be really
It was
excited.
nice to. Oh, that's great. Oh, did you guys record it then?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
recording, so
Right,
I'm
you're
gonna,
recording.
I'm gonna share this up on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's so
Okay,
nice
good to meet
you.
you guys.
Same here.
So nice to see you.
He's going into the karate side of the office here in the house, in the garage. So I just don't know if he's going to be recording. When the pandemic started, right back in March, April, I was in here teaching. So I'm like 5, 6, 7, 8, and you hear him in there. We don't have enough sound walls, like soundproof. And he's like, yeah, karate with and so you hear all this noise. It's hilarious. And then my daughter's in her room and she's teaching the 4 and 5-year-old karate kids. No, don't touch that. Can you leave the camera alone? Hilarious. So and we're all loud. Anyway, so you hear 3 like 5, 6, 7, 8. Hilarious. Like it's like somebody needed to be in here recording us. Do you know what I mean? This is what the Liciaga family is doing during the pandemic. Jazz hands and karate.
It's like you've created the new variety show. This is the new type of.
Totally.
Instead of the Brady Bunch show, we have the Liciaga show. I like it. I think it's a good pitch. I'm gonna pitch that show. But and also,
You might be right. You might.
but like,
And then my son, then the 6-year-old son, every once in a while, like he forgot his key. So remember when earlier, Andrew, I had to get up. I had to let him in. He'll come stroll through here, open up the garage, bring in his BMX bike, go back down. But you know what? Guess what? You have to do what you have to do. We're still in a pandemic, and we've been struggling with, to keep our karate school open. Small businesses here in South Jersey are suffering. So we need to continue to think outside the box. Right away, my husband didn't drop a beat. He was like, we're going all virtual. He had like the big screen. You've got 100 kids doing karate on Zoom. Like he had to keep it going, and then the students, these kids, the younger kids, they don't understand why they can't be with their friends and why they can't do this. So my husband's been really on the other end as well too, on the emotional and psychological end on what COVID has done with children, and it's really hard. It's really, like with the parents, he's trying to talk to the parents to help them understand. Some of the parents, they don't have grandparents or other people that can stay with the children because they have to go back to work. Mm-hmm. And then so the kids are left alone. Like, thank God my children are older. Like, I don't know what I you know what I mean? I don't know what I would do.
Yeah. Well, and I also, I want all my students and everyone who watches this video back to know I've been so inspired, not only with you as a director in my personal life, but seeing how you've utilized social media to create all of these theme days. Like, I know you have Twirling Tuesdays. What's on Wednesday? Do you have a Wednesday theme?
Yes, Wednesday is my Words of Wisdom Wednesday. And I think I used something from Prince because I'm a Prince fan. I love Prince. And I think I think I posted about some charitable acts, things that you do are acts of love and they don't need to be publicized. And, when he died a couple of years ago, he had given so much monies to Minneapolis and to certain people and built certain areas for what do you call underprivileged children in certain areas for music and the arts. Mm-hmm. And my thing is that if you have the gifts and you have the finances, or if you don't, I say your talent and your treasure, right? Whatever we can give back, whatever you can give back. And you have so many people from Hollywood and all the big rappers and all these stars, and I'm like, instead of complaining about, oh, there's gangs on the street and there's this going on, why don't you build something? Do you know what I mean? Why don't you build an art center so that these kids have somewhere to go, that they're safe, that they're learning something safe, instead of complaining You know, my thing is, it's like, you know, come on, you can put the money in the action, you know, where your mouth is. And if you don't have the finances, not everybody has the monies where they could just write checks, then you can donate your time.
Yeah.
Donate your time, mentor, read to someone. There's so many things in our communities, whether it's the library. Really quick, cool thing. My mom is running for township council. My mother's 75 and she's been retired forever. Let me tell you, I was like, Mom, you could do it. You'd be great. She's so excited. She's so pumped. She's a retired school teacher, and English was her thing and her major and stuff. She's writing up a storm, and you know, she's got all these great ideas. I said, this is wonderful because you are the older generation, but you want to pour back into.
Yeah.
She's mentored, you know, and coached through our school systems here where we are in Mount Laurel and the Marlton area and stuff. And it's great. Children need that. They need to know that we adults care about them, and we care about their future and their emotional state and their mental state. We need that. So I'm like so proud of my mom, because at first she was like, I don't know what I'm doing. What's this Zoom thing? So she's calling me all the time, Andrew. And then I have to hook her up and go through the technical part. And my mom has been booking, I don't have a picture of her, but my mom has been booking print ads. She's been I've been her manager.
Wow.
She's been booking print ads and work. Oh yeah, because you know what? It's the baby boomers, that 50, 60, 70 generation, right? That's, you know, they're retired and they're golfing. She did this cute thing in Quakertown where they were playing tennis, and I'm like, oh, it must be nice. So she'll come over and call like, Renee, I have to study the script. I'm like, Mom, I have to work. Like, because I still tell her, even though we're close and we're friends, I'm like, I still have to work. I still have teenagers. Like, you're like in your golden years. You know what I mean? Nobody's at the house. She's like, woo! So I put her to do public service. So she's running for township council.
Love it.
And then I want to show
Yes.
everybody something really quick. So this is South Jersey magazine. So my husband and I and the kids, when they were younger, we did shoots for Sesame Place, and they did Disney and stuff when they were little. They're kind of not interested anymore. But before, they're like, okay, Mommy, this is fun. Now they're like, no, we don't want to do it. But anyway, but they did do the T-Mobile gig with us. But there's Peter and I there.
Oh,
Yeah, nice.
See it?
that's wonderful.
We did like a fashion shoot thing. It was a lot of fun. So every once in a while, like they'll call us up and be like, hey, do you want to do this commercial? Hey, do you want to do that? Pocono Mountains, here's our daughter here. This was 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
That's the side of her body. Yeah. Now that was cute. We got to stay at Woodlock at the resorts. Oh, sweet, for 2 days, bed and breakfast. Oh, we had our own wing. My husband and I, I'm like, this is great. Because, you know, they hired us as a family. So we are really the family that you're going to get. We're not actors pretending, you know? So that's kind of a neat thing. That's been a lot of fun. So it's kind of like, I would say that my act 2, you know, like, you know, I still like to act and do print work and stuff, but I love being behind the scenes now with the choreography and direction, and I love mentoring. That's my heart. That is my heart. I have 5 amazing students now. One's in England. The others are in Pennsylvania and scattered all over. And they've been working hard. They've been working really hard through the COVID. We've been doing the Zoom. I keep trying to, you know, make sure that sometimes they would stay on the phone with me for a half hour later. Miss Renee, in the theater, and I can't dance at my school anymore. Like because these are teens that are used to being expressive and being with their friends and in different groups and playing basketball and softball. And now it's like nothing. So, you know, I'll just stay on the phone with them and talk to them and just, you know, just hear their hearts, because I'm an adult and I'm trying to process the COVID.
Right.
Like how, you know, 15, 16, you know what I mean? Trying to wrap their heads around that this is the time of their lives as teenagers. No proms, no graduations. Imagine, you know what I mean? No Disney, the senior class trip, everything got canceled.
Yeah. Well,
so, you know, we're a little older, so.
I have this mantra calendar that I always look to, and the quote for September is, "A somebody was once a nobody who wanted to and did." And that, like, what you're saying about I mean, right now, just even reaching out to you, there was a thought in my mind saying, I really should check in with Renee, and I keep seeing her on social media, and I know that she has such wisdom to share with my students, but also to open up about thinking about the performing arts. And that's where, to see that you're thinking outside the box. Like there are so many opportunities happening right now of creativity. Like, and I even sent a video of myself singing to my students, and I'm like, you know, this is how I'm processing what's happening. Here's myself singing. Like human.
I saw them.
Yes.
I saw them. They were great. They were awesome. And you know what,
Yeah.
too, Andrew, you know what's really important is to let your students know, and I'm going to share this with them. My husband and I do a lot of different projects. We're working on a huge project now with an award-winning composer who lives out in Pennsylvania, and we auditioned a whole bunch of teenagers for a PSA, a public service announcement called "Don't Forget to Wear a Mask." It's coming out soon. Can't tell you any more details,
Oh,
but the way that I find, not just only using my own students, but the way that I find
It
talent.
was just released. It's public now.
It was just released?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it was just released.
Oh.
My husband's just
I
telling me.
sent it
Okay, great. Did we hear back from
YouTube.
Jay yet?
No,
No.
no, but
Okay.
it looks great.
It does look great. Okay, all right. Well, it was just released. Well, there you go.
Wonderful.
I'm like
Okay, well-
waiting, going. Sometimes you can't say stuff until after the fact. I still think I'm
definitely
gonna wait
send
a
me-
little longer.
If you have a link to it, send it to me and I'll share it with this video.
I will, and also for your students as well too, because I know that some of them are from out of state and in state and all over. It's always good for them to be able to have a network of people that they can reach out to, whether they're minoring in English or majoring in English, or whether or not they want to test out the performing arts or maybe writing a play or a script. It's so important for them to stay in the circle. So now you all know how to find me through Andrew. Through your professor, and that's great. I mean, Andrew, you know so many people as well too, because you were at such a young age with all the talents that you had and your skills and ability. You were able to work with so many people in such a short time while you were down in Washington Township.
Yeah,
and
I
now
feel
look at you now. You're
like-
going for your degree and
Yeah.
teaching. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and I feel like now I'm paying it forward. Like I'm just trying to pay forward all the experiences I had in showing my students, look at these opportunities. And like, you never know. I reached out to a composer of a Whitman opera. His name is Matt Alcoyne. And I just sent him an email and I said, I just saw your opera at the Brooklyn, where is it?
With BAM?
BAM, thank you, BAM, the Brooklyn
Yep.
Academy of
BAM,
Music.
yep.
And would you be interested in celebrating Whitman Symposium at Stony Brook and coming out? And he responded the next day. And I've used that lesson with so many people. Like, you never know. Most people, they're going to check their email and, they're
Right.
interested to collaborate. Like, never think,
Yes.
oh, this person is out of my league, or they're not going to reach out to me.
And guess what? Guess what, Andrew? Especially not now, because guess what? We're all in the same boat, maybe in different boats, but we're all in the same boat. All my friends that were doing tours and on Broadway and away overseas, guess what? Everybody's home now. Do you know what I mean? So everybody's on the same, on the same playing field as to now what do I do? What do I do with my time and talent? I can't physically go into the theater now. What other skills do I have? What other things can I do to
Yes.
help me to get the income coming in so that I can continue to, and that's been a big, huge lesson for a lot of my friends that are a little older than me, that are in their mid 50s and early 60s. And they're like, well, I was always the Broadway diva. I always had my show. I'm like, well, you don't now. So now what? Now what? You have to think, well, this is all I learned, or this is all I did. Well, now guess what? Now it's time to get a new skill. You know what I mean? Now it's time to reinvent yourself. Now it's time to start doing talks. Now it's time to start giving back. Well, I don't teach. I can't teach. Okay, well then you better figure it out. Do you know what I mean? Some of the jazz musicians and stuff, like they've opened Birdland and a few other places, the Blue Note, those guys are all plexied up, all the musicians, they're playing live. And you can send them money through Venmo or whatever, but everybody has to pay their bills. You know what I mean? Everyone has families and things.
Yeah.
So they have to think outside the box, or else.
We're gonna leave so you two can keep going, but we really
okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
We love that. You know what? The whole thing is pursue your passion. I agree with you. And
Yes.
a lot of the younger people, they're not afraid to make a change in a job. Like how we were raised is that you stick with a job even if you don't like it. I hate
True.
to say that, but we notice those who are younger, they don't stay in something just for the sake of staying.
Yeah.
If they're not happy. And I think that's really important nowadays. And that's what
Yes.
we learned from COVID.
Yes.
To, think about it, be what's the word? Come on, Andrew, you're the English guy. Introspective?
Yeah.
Is that a word? And
Introspective.
anyway, and look within of what makes you happy, because now that's the biggest lesson I think, are learning from COVID is be happy,
Yes.
and pursue what you really are passionate about.
Definitely, because guess what? You can always make money. Money's going to come, money's going to go.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
It's true.
Because, yeah, you can love what you do, but if you feel like you're not treated well from whomever is your employer, it's not good to stay there just for the sake of staying there. It's better to move on.
This is true.
For your own sake.
Yes.
That's what I take. That's my takeaway from it.
So true.
Well, thanks for
Well,
joining.
take care.
You too. Take
You're
care, Mom
welcome.
and Dad. Blessings to you down in
Bye,
Washington
Renee.
Township. It was so good seeing you.
Same here.
Hope
Okay,
you do
take
as well.
care.
Yeah.
Bye. That's right. Your mom and that business. Business is important. Business courses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll talk to
You're
you
welcome.
later.
Thank you.
This is just
that was
wonderful.
so sweet. Having
And I
your mom
mean,
and dad.
Yes. And I think everything that you've been talking about is that passion and bringing people together, thinking creatively, and realizing that you can do something with the skills you have. Like, I think the hardest thing that I've seen, just even from those who are at the university right now, is if you start to have a mental collapse and you feel emotionally depleted, like there's nothing you can do. And it's like what you said about your students. Some of them said, well, I can't perform on stage right now. What do I do? And I think that once you realize, like, even having this conversation with you right now, it triggers all the happy neurons that I'm experiencing. Like, oh, there's people who are trying to think creatively, and we are forming communities. Like, but again, that wouldn't happen if I was, addicted to watching my phone right now. Like, I wouldn't be sharing this experience. And, I think though, that's why I keep saying to people, find the things that get you mentally stimulated and continue making sure you're in a positive space, because, the news is going to keep continuing. Like, it's an endless cycle.
Sometimes you just have to go click. Sometimes you have to turn that off. Like, sometimes I can only watch it in bits. Like after dinner, like I don't do 11 o'clock news, because then that's the last thing that's on my mind when I go to sleep. I'd rather have, being, thinking about thankful thoughts of, oh, I'm thankful for today that I had this happen or that happen. And sometimes, guess what? Sometimes you just have to make yourself happy. Like, you just have to, for me, it's like, okay, I'm putting on some music. Let me just dance. Let me go bang on the piano. Let me go bang on the cajon or on the drums. Like, what makes, what's going to help me to stay positive and upbeat.
Exactly.
And or sometimes just looking at old pictures, it's looking at old stuff going, wow, I did those things. That's such a blessing. How cool is that? Like, counting our blessings and going backwards and going, wow, I didn't realize that. When I come into this office, because I have stuff everywhere all around, I'm like, oh, there's my friend Brigitte from Holland, and there's so-and-so from Germany, and there's, and sometimes I'll talk to their pictures, because I don't see them all the time. Some of them, unfortunately, have passed away, whether it was, drug overdose or AIDS or whatever else. So some of them have been gone, and that's sad too, but I still remember them. You know what I mean?
You speak to them. And I think that's so powerful, Renee, because I do a lot of mantras. Like, I write a mantra every day in my calendar in the morning. I say, today I'm going to be joyful. Today I'm going to send love to people. And I practice yoga. I love yoga. Just to stretch my body.
I want to try hot yoga.
I've done that
yoga. One of my
before.
friends
I like
said it's
it.
really good.
It is.
Really? She said she almost passed out. I've never done it before. Like, I usually do like the Pilates with the stretching, and I have all the bands and equipment and stuff like that, as I'm getting older, so certain things just hurt and don't work as well as they used to, and that's normal, that's natural. But I want to always try. I always wanted to try that hot yoga. They're like, yeah, it's so hot in there and you're trying to stretch. I'm like, oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, I was doing that a lot before the pandemic. I did like 6 days a week of hot yoga.
Yep.
Yeah. But like, oh yeah. 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 But now what I do.
So your body, everything's like all liquid.
Yeah. But what I do now is I walk an hour and 15 every day. I try to walk 5 miles. And I just listen to music, and I imagine. Like, that's my imaginative space. Actually, after I get off with you, I'm just gonna listen to the music. I live right by the Long Island Sound, and I'm just so grateful that I have such beautiful nature. And it's so good for your
That's
creative juices.
right.
Yeah, it's right. It
Yeah.
just it keeps you in a good
Yeah.
headspace. And that's why I say to everyone,
Yeah, it does.
yeah, when I say, you know what's not taken away from us right now is nature. Being outside, we still have that. Yes.
Yep. You're right. You're right. Yeah. I'm grateful for that. Yeah. The other day I was with my son. We just drove out down to Long Beach Island just to see the ocean and hear the waves and the sand. You know, where we are, of course, where you grew up too. You know, you have the trees and we still have the deer and the rabbits and stuff,
Yes.
and just being thankful that we're not living in a city on top of each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
That you have space. I remember at Stony Brook, because that's a beautiful campus too. And I remember, you know what I mean, the wide spaces and just being able to walk through in the grass and the trees, just beautiful. I forgot. That's right. That's right. Long Island Sound. That's right. You're closer to the water, right? Where you are
Yes.
going
I
out.
actually live, I
What
live,
do you have on the Long Island Expressway? What do you like? What were the remind me? What were some of the exits?
so we're,
As I say,
Stony
I
Brook
was
is,
driving from Adelphi or Hospital.
yeah, Stony Brook is exit 62. And
60.
I think
Okay.
Garden
So
City
like if
would
I
be
was
like
leaving
30,
Garden City. Yeah,
34,
yeah.
35, something like that. Yeah.
So what are you doing? Like going up, passing like Valley Stream and stuff, and you keep going, right?
Yeah, you have to pass
Is that the right
Huntington.
direction?
So you have to go east of
Huntington.
Huntington.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh my God, it's been so long. Like I've always wanted to go back and visit, but I haven't had the chance to go back to Long Island to visit. Isn't
Well,
that
when you
weird?
want
It's kind of
to,
strange.
we'll socially distance and I'll go take you on a walk to the beach. That's the visit.
I'd love to. No, that would be great. But of course, then I'd have to make my way up. I have to stop by Garden City. I'd have to stop at Adelphi and then keep going because I do remember you all had like the black box that was up there at Stony Brook, and
Yep, we
I
still have it.
remember.
Yeah, we still have it.
Yep, I remembered some of the dancers, some of us performers from Adelphi, Hofstra, SUNY Purchase,
Yeah.
all went to Stony Brook because you guys were doing something, and it was so awesome. It was like this massive workshop, and I can't remember who was there, but I just remember like all the different colleges, and they only picked a few of us to go to this workshop. I want to say it might have been Lee Theodore, maybe it was American Dance Machine, and she was the original Anybody's in West Side Story. I think it might have been she's been passed away. She's been gone for at least 20 years now, but I think it was Lee Theodore's master workshop out there, and
Okay.
it was at Stony Brook because I remember like, well, this is a nice college campus too. Like I.
Yeah. I'll probably edit this part out, but I've wanted to tell you this since I started talking to you again, Renee. But
Oh, okay.
one of my passion
Yep.
musicals is Debbie Allen's choreography for Carrie. Have you ever seen when she did the Carrie musical? It was like, but
Yeah.
it's so intense in all the good ways. I'm like, whoa,
I
these
know.
dancers are dancing.
You want to hear something interesting though about that show?
Yeah.
Was when we were doing Starlight Express. Hang on, I'm trying to remember. We were in Germany. Fritz Kurtz was the producer at that point before, like when it was Stella. So this must have been 88, 89, and they were losing all this money from Carrie on Broadway. And he was telling us how we had to make sure that our show was great so that so that he doesn't lose his sixth house, summer home. I was like, are you kidding me? But yeah, Carrie, and then what was it after that? Come on, not Dracula. It was like 2 or 3 years later when they tried to produce Dance of the Vampires or the.
Yes.
What was
Yes,
it
there's
called?
dance. Well, there was Lestat. Is
Yeah,
that
let's stop. Yeah, it wasn't that one. It was the other one.
Yeah, I
Because
think
in
it is
German
Dance
it's
of the Vampires. I
Yeah,
think it
it was Tanz of the Vampire. Yeah, yeah, that's what it was. Dance of the Vampires. Yeah, I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, he's telling us to be fabulous in the show that we're already fabulous in because he doesn't want to lose his sixth home because Carrie wasn't doing a good job on Broadway and it was like flopped. It was a flop or something. I was like, oh
Yeah.
no.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, you're right. You're right. The dancing in that was fierce. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll
They'd
share
have to
with you.
they'd-
Yeah, I'll share with you. They did
Go ahead.
they did a reunion of it on Stars in the House. And the whole story apparently is that German backer, the German producer, they were getting
Fritz.
sold
Yeah.
out. They were getting sold out houses on Broadway, but he like just up and left with all the money because he was going into
That's what
bankruptcy.
happened.
Yeah, yeah. It was very shady.
It was either him or his partner because there was two of them, something like that. Yeah,
Yep.
something shady happened. Interesting, because I just remember him saying that coming in during the break and going, "Oh well, Carrie's not doing a good job, and if this show doesn't sell out, then I'm going to lose my 6th summer home." And we're all looking at him like, "Well, we just want one summer home."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, know your audience.
It was his house on the French Riviera or something ridiculous like that. I don't know. It's funny because when we lived in Europe and in Germany and traveling, it was amazing. Do you know what I mean? And being able to live in different countries and learning the languages and the cultures. But you know, I don't know. Then once 9/11 happened, and then once I had my kids, I was like, oh, okay. You know, like if I get back there, I'd like to go back and visit and see my friends, and in Japan too, and you know, maybe Australia. But I don't know. Right now, I'm like, okay. You know, COVID, we can't go anywhere anyway, so I'm like, okay.
But you're
But,
you're a
you know.
fierce dancer. I mean, you really are. Like when I think of the
Oh,
adjective fierce, I think of Renee Liciaga because and like
hey, guess what? I could still when I was teaching you guys Smokey Joe's, I was still able to do those twirls, but that was a while ago.
I remember
So
the twirls.
things kind of are still working. Things are still working. I have a little bit of, you know, some hip problems here and there from a fall. I actually injured myself last year.
Oh.
And as a result of that, unfortunately, you know, like things are not as, but I mean, I could still get my legs up. I can still, you know, there's certain things I could still do really good. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. But then later I'm like, oh, it hurts.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay. So am I performing for you before we wrap up?
Yeah, do you want to do just a little something to wrap up?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Go for
Here,
it.
yeah,
Go
why
for
not?
it.
All right, hold on. Let's see. I'm gonna have to. I'm probably gonna have to back stuff up. I'll have to move my chair out the way. There we go. Whee! All right, I'm moving my chair out of the way. Seeing the feet might be important, right? Since I'm a dancer. Hang on. Let's see. Let's see.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
gonna be good.
you need to let me know. No, hang on. Yep. Oh, hold on. Hang on, Andrew. Let's see. What if I put this up here on top? What if I raise it and then
Oh, yeah, that's probably better.
let's see.
Yeah, that's good. Yep.
I have to stay way back here though. But if I go close enough, I don't know. Let's see. I might have to. I can try to bend down. Okay. Does that work?
That's good. No, that's good. You see most of everything.
All right. Awesome. So I got one hat, two hats. Ooh, I gotta show you I have a whole bunch of hats. I've got all my props and stuff over here. And a lot of times I'll just pack everything when I'm doing my coaching sessions. This was from TD Bank. Check out the sparkle one. But I'm not gonna wear the sparkle green. That's TD, you know, the TD Bank color, whatever. I know. It's like this random color green. But here you go. This is one of my favorite. It's old. One of my favorite fedoras. So here we go. I'm gonna put it on. If you want to, you can snap with me. I just don't know if it's gonna echo or not. But here we go. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Here we go. And everybody in my house is gonna go, what's she doing now? I'm dancing. I'm singing. Oh, what else would I be doing? Hang on. Let me see. What else would Mama be doing? All right. Here we go. Yeah, you can see me now, right? Yes, no?
Yep. Yeah, we're good. We're good.
When I'm choreographing, literally, usually I have all this space and more. So it's just that the webcam is so close. All right, so can you hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Cool. All right, here we go. So I'll start close up. Here we go. Acapella on Broadway, Smokey Joe's. Bum, bum, ba-da-dum, bum, 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 ba-da-dum, bum, bum. They say the neon lights are bright on Broadway. They say there's always magic in the air. But when you're walking down the street and you ain't had enough to eat, the glitter rubs right off and you're nowhere on Broadway. On Broadway, on Broadway.
Excellent. I think that's going to be our,
and that's all I'm doing for today.
that's going to be our feature. I'll just have you singing, dancing. That's the trailer for this.
Oh, that's the trailer. Okay. I was like, oh, let's see. What can I do? I don't know. I was going to try to do a kick, and I was like, no. But because now I'm on my chair. I've been doing a lot of chair and like the hat dancing. Do you know what I mean? Like just different styles with the hat. It's all that Jack Cole and Fosse style, which I love.
Yeah, I was going to say, were you ever in a Fosse musical?
Almost twice, but then no. It's interesting because I look tall and long, but 20 years ago when they were doing the Fosse shows in Chicago, I think the cutoff was 5'7" or 5'8". So I would go in there with, hang on, let me show you. I have them in here because I was wearing them the other day on Sunday. I had a coaching session, and then I stayed in the karate school and twirled for an hour with these heels going, oh my God, it's been forever. With the 3-inch heels, the 3-inchers. Yeah. And, I would, go in with those. And then it would say, okay, great. Yeah, that was great, Renee. All right, take your shoes off now and line up with the other girls. And I'm like, well. So I'm not short.
No.
But do you know what I mean? I wasn't like one of the leggy, long, tall Rockette girls. And then, of course, 15, 20 years later, then they lowered the Rockettes size and they lowered the height requirement. So I think now the height requirement is 5'5", 5'6". So I would be okay. But then they would be like, oh, can you take your heels off? And I'm like, no, I can't. Because then I knew I'd be like a couple inches too short. But I mean, I think I have long legs. I mean, my legs are, pretty decent considering. But yeah, so that's my Fosse story and my Chicago story. I was up for the end of one of the tours. And then one of my taller girlfriends got it. I was like, but then, I was an Andrew Lloyd Webber baby. I did all the Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals, and guess what? Those shows just kept going on and on and on and on. So from Jesus Christ Superstar to Joseph to Starlight, to Evita. I did Evita as well too. So there's like so many of his shows, and everybody's like, oh, it's all the same. I said, you know what? I don't care. You know what I mean? He keeps us working.
Yeah. Well, and like,
and of course I love Sondheim and I love other. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I was just gonna say what I love about Smokey Joe's Cafe. I return to that soundtrack a lot now. Is how it incorporates just all of that. It's Lieber and Stoller, right?
Yes. Yep.
And it incorporates just such different genres, and right, you have like the sassy jazz singing mixed with like stylized dancing, mixed with belting women, mixed with like the doo-wop singing. It's just, and that's why it works so well.
Yeah. Yep. You're right. Hold on one second. I'm gonna move this back down because now I can't see. Now that my eye. There you go. That's better. Because I'm trying to, but my camera's not on my computer, so I'm trying to look at you. But then everyone else is gonna think that I'm looking like on an angle. So. And is that better?
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Wait, how long were you with the Pennsylvania Ballet?
I used to train there when I was in high school. So I was there, I would go and take the classes, the regular classes. And then one day they were like, well, can you, train in one of our programs? I was like, well, I'm not really, I took ballet since I was 4 or 5 years old. And, that was my base, but I knew that I wanted to do theater, but I stayed doing the ballet. And then of course, then the jazz, and then I built on top of that because the ballet is the base, getting the arms and the extension and the legs and everything. So
and that's why I have this posture, Renee. It's from my ballet classes at the rock school.
Yep. Yeah.
It's always stayed with me.
Yeah, which is good. It's and especially as you get older too, you really want to try to keep pulling up through the spine and just trying to elongate yourself. And I teach that to some of my students. I have some amazing dancers, and they're like 13, like 14, 15. They kind of stopped doing the ballet, and now their hips are tight. I'm like, you got to get back into your ballet classes. So when I'm coaching, I kind of mix it all up. Like, I don't know if you remember, like when we used to do our warm-ups for Smokey Joe's with Ricky, you know what I mean? We would kind of do like the Pilates and the stretches and breathing, contract, release, and then pulling up, and then the plie, demi plies and grand plie, and then the lunges. So I still kind of try to structure and do the same thing. So it's like in between, like a little bit of the modern, do you know what I mean? And then the ballet, and then the Pilates. so everything is stay elongated. Because then once you start going across the floor and we start getting more technical, then that's where you need the ballet training, pulling up, you know what I mean? And making sure that you're on, your releve and making and your feet are working properly. And so
Well, Renee,
all the things that I learned for
yeah,
all those many years, I still implement with my private students. I'm
yeah.
like, nope, you're not doing it right. Nope, you're not. And because they want to get to the choreography. And if that, of course, that's my favorite thing too. Yeah, like, yeah, let's do some crazy turns. I'm like, yeah, but you can't do crazy turns because now it's musical theater and now you're doing crazy turns in 3-inch heels or roller skates.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the ballet comes in.
Yes,
That's where
bringing you back to that core, the basic
yes,
balance, right?
yeah.
And like, I don't know if you knew, I was in All Shook Up
Ooh, what,
that summer after Godspell. It was at Broadway
oh,
Pittman Theater, and
oh,
that was the
cool.
longest run I had done. I think we were at 40 performances
Wow.
throughout the summer. And I started to kind of gain that, oh, what would it be like to have 8 shows a week? And but I tell you, your body, like you could tell who was doing the work and who wasn't of warming up.
Yep.
And it's like, even though, like you said, it's a different schedule than film television,
Right.
your body still, like at least my body, I had to be warmed up
Oh
for
yeah.
it.
Oh
Like
yeah, you
even
have
that
to.
day, like I wouldn't eat certain things like 2 hours beforehand. It's all right. And you have to drink, make sure you're hydrated.
Oh, hydrate,
I,
hydrate,
and I
hydrate.
hydrate, I hydrate all the time now, just
Exactly.
with my
Yep.
own self. But I thought it was such a good way of conditioning your mind, of even thinking like how to continue to stay organic. And right, because
Yes.
like I think it was into like probably performance number 20, where I'm like, oh, at this time I entered this
Yeah.
way stage, and like and it becomes mechanical, but it can also, there's so much, like it's a new audience. So I would always think to myself, right when that overture started, this is a new audience. They're seeing this for the first time. Don't phone
Yep.
in this performance.
Oh no, yeah, that's we used to get told that a lot. Like, oh, back then it was faxing in the
I
90s.
love that.
Don't fax the performance in, don't fax it in. And with big shows, this is what I learned with big shows like Starlight Express, Joseph, the big dance shows, West Side Story, the huge big dance shows that my husband and I did, you could not phone it in. You would injure yourself or someone else. If you're in the wrong spot, if you're not paying attention, if you don't take the notes from the dance captain and then your vocal captain, if it can be dangerous. And then I remember Friday night we would do a show, then Saturday you're doing one, then Saturday night, then Sunday afternoon was like, you're like, okay, we're doing the breakfast show. We used to call it the breakfast show.
Oh,
Like you're like nobody, you're like, lip trills in the, in the shower. And then not just doing the shows, that many shows if you're in a sit down production, but now you're on a tour. So you're going from Vancouver, Canada in the winter where it's 30 below zero to Miami, Florida, where it's 85, 90 degrees, like in
wow.
1 week. That was a challenge. That was interesting. And thank God for our production managers, stage managers, because they would tell us everything. Hey, look, we're getting ready to go somewhere cold. Make sure you get your vitamin C's. We would have our little steamers, our little, inhaler steamers as well, too, to make sure you kept your vocal cords moist. Sometimes we'd stay in the hotels or they would get us the apartment hotels. And then you could put your wok and your stuff in your trunk. Like they would fly or drive all your extra stuff. So I remembered in Joseph, we used to have I used to call it, what did I used to call, what was it? Was it Saturday Night Fever? We would do Saturday Night Fevers where we'd put like extra glitter on and have disco music before the show. And then Sunday, because I didn't want to hear people bad mouthing each other and some of the performers, they get on each other's nerves in the cast because that's your family.
Yeah.
So toward the end of the Joseph tour, I started doing what was it, Jazzy Sundays or something. And I would just have my little boombox, my little CD
Oh,
player,
I love
and
it.
play jazz and classical music. It was like, nobody can talk. We're just listening to me because I don't want to hear the garbage. Like
Yes.
I was always like a positive person. I didn't want to hear somebody yelling about someone or attitude. And then so one of the other girls was like, oh, I like the Sunday brunch. Like it was like Sunday jazz brunch. So she would have the stage hands pack her little cappuccino maker in her stuff, and then we would have like little cappuccinos, and as we're like doing our Joseph makeup and getting ready, that was fun. So we used to have Saturday Night Fever, which was like, you know, disco music going on and glitter everywhere. Like sometimes we weren't allowed to have too much glitter on the makeup because, as you know, your makeup is trademarked and copyrighted, your costumes are trademarked and copyrighted, your hairstyle, your wig, you can't start changing stuff up. Even though some of us did a little bit. And then production stage manager would go, oh, Renee, that's a really cute little glitter thing. Yeah, you can leave it on for now, but you have to take it out. Then I was like, okay, you know, that, because you're doing the same show day in and day out for years at a time. My husband and I did some of the shows we did for years.
Yeah.
For a long time.
But I love like how you just explained that, because I think I carried the training that you gave me and I had in my other musical theater training, and I think especially back to the rock school where, yes, I had the choreographers who were smoking. I mean, that was traditional in ballet school. But at the same time, though, you had to show up, you had to be there, you had to listen to notes. And even in high school, when I played Captain Von Trapp, I was, to prepare for that character, I guess it was maybe very method, but I would want to be like by myself reading a book. You know, the track for his part, he's not on stage until 30 minutes in. And I always found those to be the hardest. Like, I want to be out there right away. So if you have to wait in a show, I would just want to, everyone else is chatting, they're chit-chatting. I'm like, Captain Von Trapp doesn't chit-chat.
That's right. Yep.
Focus. And so I would do that in my body. I'm like, I need to focus. Yep. But I think it's right. You learn those skills. Like you learn, and others might be like, oh, Andrew, you're not having fun with us. And I'm like, it's not about having fun. It's about preparing for the audience.
Yes. Yes, because they paid to go see you, and they want to see as much as they can the same show. You know what I mean? We need to, every day it needs to be the same exciting, you know, and sometimes you're like, oh, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, here we go. And, you know, my husband, him and his friend, I mean, this was years ago, especially in Starlight, they would say TOTM, TOTM. And I'm like, what is that? Think of the money. Think of, you know, because, you know, I mean, we got paid very well. The checks and, you know, and having the insurances and everything, they excellent care of us. And when you went to another country as well, too, those contracts were just as golden, you know, they set up apartments for us and you had cars and you had, I mean, it was like amazing, you know? So then on your days off, we're like, hey, what are we going to do? Oh, let's drive down to Switzerland. That's 2-3 hours. Hey, let's go on the train and go to Holland, go to Amsterdam. We went to the Van Gogh Museum and, you know, the Anne Frank house and that's an hour and a half on the train. Like, I think a lot of the times if you haven't traveled out of the country yet, Europe is everything's so close together. It's like us driving from like here to Pennsylvania, you know what I mean? Like New York to Pennsylvania, you know, you could be in like a different country, you know, because all the countries were so close. And so that was like a really neat thing, you know. It's like on our day off, what do we want to go do? You know, but then once we were back in town and back with the show, it was like, okay, you know, work out at the gym. My husband used to do the gym workouts, and then he was doing, you know, the karate training. And then we'd have a big thing of pasta because you were burning up all these carbs, you know, but you had to eat it by 3 because then by 6 o'clock you're in there for wigs, and everything was timed, you know, especially with the bigger shows like Starlight Express. You have 30-40 people that need to be wigged and mic'd, and they had a specific schedule, bam, bam, like clockwork. It was amazing. It was incredible, you know. And then by the time you finish the show, you're exhausted. You're like, but it's 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And of course, by the time you wind down, it's 12 o'clock. You're not ready to go to sleep yet. But on a Friday or Saturday night, you better be in bed, because guess what? You're waking up and you're doing the breakfast show. Like the matinees were the hardest shows. You're like, oh, here we go. And then I would get lazy and leave all my makeup on. And then sometimes just take it down because it took hours for the eyes. You saw the one picture I held up, right, with the all white face.
Oh yeah, that's
that with the
what
wig.
was that? An hour or how many hours did that take for you to get all that makeup on?
Once you learned, it didn't take long at all. It could take maybe 15, 20 or 25, 30 minutes.
Okay.
But Because when I did Starlight, when I did the show in Germany, I was a swing. So I understudied 5 roles. My husband understudied like 15, which is insane.
Oh
So
my.
somebody would get injured because that was the norm when you're roller skating. And then you're in your unitard with your hair in your pin curls and your microphone up here. Like all the swings would have their mics here and have a basic bass on. And then when they would call you to the office, you're like, all right, what character? And you're like, and literally they're throwing the costume on you and your skates and they're throwing you on stage. Yeah, the role of a swing or understudy is very hard, very difficult. I believe you have to not be just as talented as the first cast or as the leads or the ensemble, but you have to be aware. You have to be sharp with the choreography, with the stage direction. You have to have, I believe, a photographic memory. Because if you don't and you're in the wrong spot, like with that show in Joseph, you will injure someone because there's moving parts and moving sets and if you're in the wrong place or the wrong space, you will injure someone and you'll injure yourself, and that's your career. So when I was a swing, I took it seriously, or an understudy. And then as I got older and people started asking me to dance captain, because then when I dance captained Smokey Joe's Cafe, that was a big show to dance captain in Europe. And they had all just come from the New York company and the other companies. So they're like, oh, well, I don't feel like doing this today. I'm like, well, you know what? Joey McNeely and them could fly in at any time. And it's my fault if you don't do the proper arm. It's my, they will yell at production stage manager and dance captain. Why does the show look a mess? So I took, that was like my responsibility. So I would tell them, all right, that's great. Well, we're going to Switzerland tomorrow. We're in Zurich for like 3 weeks. Either you guys can take the note or we'll just have rehearsals all day. Yeah. And it only took them one day to have, we had rehearsals all day, this one day, and they were over it. Like they finally fixed it. And I was like, and now you can go see the castles and have fun, because we would, you would have your whole day off. So think about it. You're in Zurich, Switzerland for 3 weeks and you only have a night show to do. How easy is that?
Yes.
You know what I mean? You can go to the cafe, you can go shopping. That's what I was doing at the art museums, on the little lakes between, Zurich, and it was gorgeous. At the Stadt Opera, watching an opera or watching a ballet. That's where I'd be during the day, and I would go home, get a nap, eat, put my makeup on, do the show.
And I think this is why I gravitate towards you so much, Renee, is because I share that work ethic, and I learned that from my family, and it's also what I've carried into teaching is they're so related, the professions, teaching and they're so connected. Like when you show up for, how I would prepare for a show is how I prepare as an instructor.
Yes.
Like I set the tone as the teacher, so I want my students to also trust that I've done all the work, that
that's right.
They're now ready to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a work ethic.
Yes, it is. It's a work ethic, just like you said. And then if you are the teacher, then there is a little bit more expected of you because you do need to come prepared. I don't like to, oh yeah, let me just wing this rehearsal or let me just wing. No, I go all my choreography set. I have books and books of notes and things like that. Sometimes I'll change the notes if I want to, but I have an idea, you have at least the framework, of what you want. That was like with Godspell. Like I already had the framework. I went in the script. I knew what the sounds I wanted. I knew the lighting. Caleb, the young guy that did our sound, like he's doing professional sound engineering all over the place now.
Really?
Yeah.
He was wonderful.
And he was great. Like I gave him my ideas and I said, but you know what? I want you to continue to put whatever other colors that you see. And that production of Godspell was really awesome that you guys did. I wish that we would have recorded the whole thing. I only have bits.
Yeah.
But it still lives in it lives in my memory because we only had 2 weeks to put it together.
Well,
but that's a normal Broadway show schedule. A normal national tour schedule is 2 weeks. That's all you get. So I kind of like that because it makes everyone stay crisp and stay on top of what they have to learn. When you guys got your scripts for Godspell, you guys were amazing. And that was a lot of dialogue.
Yeah, but I think that to end too, from different directors I've had in my past, it's also what I say to my students with teachers. Like, if you have teachers who, because sometimes they'll try to kvetch to me that so-and-so is like, this instructor is doing this wrong. And I'm like, okay, I'm not entering into this, let's
Yeah.
drag this instructor. That's not professional. I said, if
No.
you have an issue with an instructor, you should reach out to them and try to have a conversation and dialogue. And it was the same thing with directors. Like, I'm sure you too, in your career, I've had directors who made themselves the center attraction. Like, and then they try to become too friendly to the cast.
Yeah.
And I always try not to stay, like, they're like, oh yeah, don't you all want to go out partying with me tonight? And I'm like, no, I'm not interested.
No. That's a little, yeah, no.
Right.
Yeah.
And, but it's also,
Fine line.
but it's also like, I knew myself that I didn't have to give in to the peer pressure. So I always say to people too,
Good.
like, if you're not comfortable in a certain environment, then say, you know, I don't want to do this right now. And, you know, say, this is a professional gig I'm doing, and, you know, I'm going to leave. Like, you know what your expectations are. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting because not everyone, and it doesn't. This is important, I think, for people to hear, is just because you are being paid for something, or just because you've been getting this, have gotten a certain title or position, does not necessarily mean that your work ethic is. Do you know what I mean? That is above board or on bar. And I'm not going to mention any shows. I'm not going to mention any names except for my husband and I, because I can.
Yeah.
And this happened quite a while ago, but still, it rings in my heart and it rings in my head. And I've shared it before when I've had other interviews. Assistant director of a huge show that my husband and I were doing. He had just gotten a title. He had been a performer with us for years prior to that. And you're like, oh, okay, whatever. Okay, now he's the assistant director. And we're doing a scene, a situation, and he started describing, okay, well, all the females go into the circle, and then the guys are going to be like, it's like you're going to like hurt them, like you want to, and do something to them. Yeah, I'm not going to say the word. And I'm in the circle. My husband's in the rehearsal. Now, we're performers back then. We weren't on the creative production end of it or whatever. My husband comes up, stops the rehearsal, says, you're not going to talk to my wife like that. And this is interesting because we're both professional performers, but I'm also his wife, his young wife, and that's my husband. He said, you're not going to talk to my wife like that. Grabs me, takes my arm, pulls me out of the circle, and we leave. And I'm looking at him like, okay, well, this is the new assistant director. Are we going to get fired? Like, my husband said, I don't care. He should never talk to women like that, number one. And number two, you're not part of that circle. And I just remember like, yeah. And then I had another situation a few years later doing a huge fashion show, international fashion show in Austria. And the contracts that we signed were, to do sportswear, bridal gowns, whatever, for huge name. He just died not too long ago. Gorgeous. I have some of the clothes up in my attic. They don't fit anymore because that's when I was a size 2 and now I'm a size 6 after kids. Can't fit that jumpsuit, but anyway, but it looked good.
Yeah. You rocked it.
Yeah, for that night. Okay, right. And I'm one of the shortest ones, but guess what? Back in the late 90s, you remember when the platforms and the wedges were coming out?
Yeah.
And it was all the 70s, that whole thing. So I was like, yeah,
hey,
the platforms. So I was rocking the platforms because, I'm in this huge fashion show with these gorgeous girls from Holland and Denmark, and they're like trees. And I'm like the short one. So I had to put my heels on. But so we get to this point where the producers are like, oh, well, there's a lingerie segment and we want you to model these. No, it wasn't lingerie. It was like pasties. It was not lingerie. It wasn't even like Victoria's Secret cute. It wasn't. And myself and three other performers, other dancers came up and went up to each other and said, we're not doing this. How are we going to? Everybody was like, oh, come on, you guys look good. Like the peer pressure, do you know what I mean? Oh, they're going to pay us 2,000 marks more. Like that was like $3,000 more. I'm like, I don't care how much more money. I didn't sign up for this. So there's this lady who's listening to this situation. She was one of the costumers. She comes out, she goes, oh, well, I have this whole rack of pajamas, like the old, like the big pajamas, like the men's pajamas and flannels. She goes, you guys can rock these. I was like, good. So we did a whole thing, a segment. I had ended up having to choreograph it. Like within 15 minutes, it was the Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Like we're having like a pillow fight. I was not going to walk out there in front of a whole bunch of clients, a whole bunch of men with no clothes on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the interesting thing was, is I'm thinking to myself, they flew me from, at this point, I wasn't living in Germany anymore. So they flew me from Philadelphia, from the States, because we were living there, to Austria. I had friends in Germany, but back then it wasn't the EU. You had to have like your passport, you know what I mean, for each
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
And the producers started getting smart and started holding on to our passports and plane tickets. Why? Because they would hire, whether it was British or American or whomever else, to come over and do the show, and they would pay you. And guess what? They wouldn't show up for these big huge galas or these big huge so that's why they started to. So in my mind I'm going, okay, I'm in Austria, I have no plane ticket, I have no money, I have no passport. Okay, I can call Heinz, I can call, like I'm thinking of people in Germany that I could call if they're going to tell me they're not going to, I'm stuck in a different country.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, it was a little nerve-wracking, and my husband wasn't here. He was back. We were in the States at this point. So I was just so happy that that lady came out at the right time going, well, can't you guys wear these? And I was like, bing, right away. We caught on to that idea, and everyone loved that line. They loved the pajama line and what we were doing and the whole dancing and the whole fashion show. And guess what? We got paid. I didn't have to have no clothes on. I got my plane ticket and went home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But things like that happen. Things like that happen. If you're not stand up for who you are and what you believe in, you could be put in some really, not too great situations, and you don't want that. So for me, with some of my students and some of my teens, oh, Miss Renee, I'm just going to go here or there. I'm like, did you read the contract? Who is it? Do you know who? You're not just going to go jet set off somewhere and you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
Or if the contract's even legal, or the producers are even legal, like you have to do your homework. You have to do
your homework. Do your homework. That's a good ending point.
Yeah, do your homework in life. Do your homework at school. Do your homework.
Well, thank you so much, Renee. I mean, I'm just so grateful that you spent so much time to talk. And what I'm going to do is listen back to this in the next few days and edit some sections to put together.
Sure.
For like an hour and a half, so I can share it with the faculty, students. I'll share it with you too for YouTube.
Sure.
Yep. And I think
and then I can share it out as well too, because I loved what you did when you tagged me, and then I was able to share it with other people.
Yep.
Because I think this was wonderful what you did. I'm so glad that you asked me, because I have people that I don't know asking me all the time. So it's like, for someone that, you know what I mean, like that we've worked together, and now I've seen you blossom into this amazing young man who's, teaching now and who cares about others, and you're using, your love of the theater and the arts and English and meshing that together. I mean, your parents must be so proud, because I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you. I can't wait. I want to share this with Ricky and,
yes, and John.
I still stay in touch with all of them, And
I actually saw Ricky. I saw Ricky and Jonathan. Oh gosh, what were we seeing? It was at Studio 54.
Cool.
It wasn't. I forget what was there.
Cabaret?
I'm trying to remember. You know what? It might have been.
Because that might have been one of the last shows that was there. There wasn't that many
That
other
a
shows
Cabaret.
there.
Yeah, I think it was Cabaret. But it was just so funny. We ran into each other just randomly.
That's so
but I do
cool.
think everything happens for a reason. Like, we're meant to be around people at the right time.
Definitely, yeah. And and like I said, I was telling you as well too, and this is something for your students to know, is that the relationships that they build in school and beyond, you want to keep those. You want to maintain those relationships and friendships, because you never know, you know what I mean, where they can have a recommendation, or someone, oh well, I know someone that could fill this position. Or that's how I am when I'm doing a project. I think of my students that are like, they're and even some of the younger ones, their parents help them, with the social media, with Instagram and stuff. I'm like, oh, Eva would be great for that dance audition, and so-and-so would be great for this, because I continue to see how they're doing, and that they're working hard, and that they're, so you never know. Like, that's important to be able to stay connected.
Exactly.
And I'm sure you probably tell your students that all the time, right? Like, stay connected, because you never know.
Yeah. Your projects, like the projects that you do, I know even projects I'm doing, I always think like, oh, who would be best to speak to this?
Exactly.
And who do I work well with? Right? That's a question I always ask is, and who doesn't have an ego?
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Who doesn't, and that's willing willing to share their time and their talents, yeah, because that's a big thing, I think. And, Broadway's trying to figure that out now. And a lot of the performers, the Actors Fund, they've been doing some really neat workshops as well. I've been trying to stay on top of it, but I have other things that happen at the same time at night, because I'm part of like a zoning board and certain things in my township.
Yeah.
So sometimes it doesn't, I'm like, I want to get to that, so I've, for myself to stay sharp on, my tools as an actress and my vocals, and some of my dance friends that I did shows with are teaching, virtually still at Steps or whatever. And they've done like 5,000 Broadway shows. They're still teaching. Sometimes I'll jump on their, on their workshops, and I'll videotape myself so that, all right, well, what am I looking like? And, so for me as a student, so I can fix myself. And so, I've been doing that as well too. And it's hard because, then once you're on the teaching end for a long time, I'm like, well, wait a minute, I want my students to be better than me. So I have to stretch myself. I have to learn more. Like if
I have to expand, like I'm always expanding my knowledge.
Good.
You always need to adapt, change.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I always worry if someone is too confident about what they're doing and they say like, I don't need to grow anymore. I always tell my students, stay away from that kind of energy. Like that's not the person who's going to help you expand.
Yeah,
Like,
my
that's an
husband always
ego.
says that too. He's like, I want to be a student. Like I want to continue to be a student of life or in life, because we're still growing and learning. Yeah, well, and every time I'm with a student or I'm choreographing a show, and I'll be like, oh, okay, what did I just give? Because Mama can't, like, because I'll have a whole bunch of stuff in my head, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm like, I'm still learning. Like I'll tell them, I'm like, yeah, I have a great resume. Yes, I've traveled the world. Yes, I've done these shows, but I said I still make mistakes too. And you know what I mean? I said, I'm still learning too. So a couple of times I had to say this to some of my younger adults. I was like, so you got to be patient with me so I can remember what I gave you. And that's why I write everything down too. But sometimes, sometimes it doesn't click as quick as I'd like it to, but sometimes I'll be like, and I've only had to do it a few times in the last couple of years, like, because they're like, well, what was the thing? But I'm like, you know what? I'm like, hang on. I'm like, how I give you guys grace and mercy for not retaining my choreography? Now you need to give me some patience. I do. I tell them, I'm real with them. I'm like, now you need to give Mama a little bit of grace and mercy. So hang on for a minute. I'm going to find out the notes. You know what I mean? And I'll go to my notes and I'll try to figure it out. And that's why I have dance captains, because they're younger than me. They remember more than me.
Yeah, and like, I do the same thing in the teaching way where like a student will say, wait, but I thought Whitman or this poet, I thought that they wrote this poem in this year. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Let me check right now and search.
Yep.
And I say, you know what? You're right. I made a mistake. And I realized it's so humbling to make mistakes and say, I made it. Thank you for correcting me. You're helping teach me. Yep. Right? Instead of saying, I have all the answers, and then you're making things up as you go. That's, yeah, that's when the ego's talking. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You want to make sure you check that. And most of my teachers, I mean, most of my teachers, with education and the arts, they were on me, they were on it, and they did know a lot. But then there were certain things that they're like, you know what, I'm not sure. I'm going to put you with this professor, or I'm going to have you talk to this person because I don't know all the answers, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So, I looked up to them even more.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but then once you realize that, that's like, wow, why are they picking on me? Why? And then there's because you have something to give, and I see it in you, and I want to make sure you fix it. And then when I started booking shows, I was like, thank you. It's like, thanks for yelling at me.
Thank you for thank you for pushing me and having me see my potential and not coming down to a level of where others who were being unprofessional, that you accepted it and said, oh, it's okay, you're being unprofessional, keep being late. Like you never gave in to that kind of mentality.
Yeah, no, yep. because I wasn't trained that way either. And then what I noticed was that if you had people doing that and then they were mean to one person and then they picked favorites, then it caused dissension within the team or within the group or within whatever you're trying to produce. And when you start directing and producing and you're on the other end, even though I experienced that as a performer, now I'm taking a step back because now I need to make sure all these performers get along and they create this magic. That's why we love live theater, right?
Magic.
It's like you all create that chemistry and that synergy and that magic. And then that's something that the director has to, you have the hands on and you give the tools, but then you have to let the magic happen, and then you pull back and then you watch it. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Like, when that happens, you just get goosebumps. Like, and that doesn't happen often, but when it does, you're like, oh, just amazing. Like it's just like you can't it transcends everything. Like you don't even have a word for it. It's just magic. It's just. And everyone clicks, everything clicks. Do you know what I mean? Sound, lighting, the whole atmosphere, everything. And that right there, that's that's just priceless. And you're just standing there in awe, because not just because of the work that you did, but because of the talent that's there and everyone that was assembled. Because now it's a community, now it's a creative collaboration, and that's what I miss. I love that collaboration with your creative team and your musicians and your actors and your costumers and that's the magic.
That's
you
the
know
magic.
what I mean? And then you sit back and you watch it. Like for me to watch it now is great. I mean, yeah, I like to perform, but whatever. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I need to perform. That's, I like performing, but that's not my be all end all anymore.
The audience experience is magic. It really is. And that's why I would think about when, you're going into performance 30 or 40, 50, especially, I'm sure once you get to performance 100 of the same show, like, and your, husband kept saying, what did he say? Think of the money.
Oh, well, TOTM. Sometimes he'd be like, TOTM. Because one of his producer friends who was older would kind of, say that every once in a while, like when you had a big show or something to tackle, or, because of course he was thinking as well, too, we were wrapping up. That was one of our last times in Germany together. And he wanted, he was starting to build, his projects and his production companies and the karate school. So he was already, do you know what I mean?
Yes. He was already thinking about his own type of business.
Yes. Yep.
Like doing a self-business.
And what we were going to do, picking everything up and literally moving back into the country after being out of the country for some. She's like, yep, let's keep it going. All right, next dream, next thing's going to happen, So, I mean, so that's a motivator as well, too. Yeah. Thinking of the finances that, wow, we're blessed that we get to perform and travel and have these people from all over Europe come and see us in a crazy show called Starlight Express from Angela Weber that everybody thought it was going to close. It's still running 30 years later in Germany. And this is amazing. This is cool. And because of, our hard work and staying focused and for the most part, injury free, now we can transfer that and all the things that we've learned and all the gifts and the talent and the finances and go home and build a family.
And I think, like you've just shown too, magic exists in so many different moments, and within your family there's magic, and there's magic of seeing live theater, but even performing. I would always just think about, Andrew, remember when you first saw Guys and Dolls when you were 3 years old? Because that's when I first saw a musical. Yeah. And I just remember watching the Adelaide dance numbers, and I'm like, that's the ticket. That's the jazz. That is the spectacle. And I would always say, remember, there's going to be people in that audience as you're performing who are going to light up, and you're going to perform for them. You're performing for that younger Andrew. So even though you might be tired, right?
Yep.
You're exhausted. That would always bring me back, right?
Yes.
Like just remembering the gratefulness, the gratitude. Yeah.
And I remembered especially when we were in Germany in Starlight, they had this one area that was just all for wheelchairs.
Oh, wow.
And when they would have children that had special needs that would come, I was like, and this is why I'm here.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was like overwhelming because they would all come all at once. And you were just like, and this is why I do what I do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You have to find a reason and a purpose, and you figure music and the arts and poetry and literature, it brings hope and life, and you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, that's why we have to have the arts because
Yes.
everybody's going crazy because
Yes.
during COVID, because that's how we express ourselves. You know what I mean? And that's why people go to pay hundreds of thousands or hundreds and hundreds of dollars to see Hamilton on Broadway or to go see the opera, because
Mhm.
they want to be transformed and taken away from wherever they are and transported into whatever the moment is on that stage, whether it's a Les Mis or whether it's a reading of Walt Whitman or whatever it may be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's what the arts does. It heals.
Exactly.
It heals.
It does heal. And I feel like everyone who's listening, as we're concluding right now, hopefully everyone who's hearing this is taking away some sort of lesson of healing and empathy,
Yep.
and that we can become better people.
We need
Like,
it.
we need it. We need the love of healing. So I think if anything else, I have a lot to think about tonight on my walk. So this is amazing.
You do, because we've talked about just about everything.
Everything. It's
We
like,
went from business to technical to school
it's
to business
everything.
to we talked about everything: family,
Yeah.
Europe and back,
This
Japan,
is
back, Disney.
this is philosophy. In my opinion, this is what philosophy is.
You know what? You're right. Actually, we just had a philosophy class, didn't
We
we?
did. We did. We had a philosophy discussion.
We had a philosophical chat about the arts. What's that about?
Well, thank you so much, Renee. And I hope you have a good night. I'm just from the
Thank
bottom of
you.
my heart. Thank you so much for this.
And you know what? And you're welcome at any time, Andrew.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Well, I'll be reaching back out to you to update you, to invite you to
Please,
other events that we have. Oh yeah.
please invite me to a reading or something, and keep me
Oh yes.
abreast of what's going on with the Walt Whitman thing, the story. Your professor,
Oh,
she
I
was
will.
wonderful.
I will. Yeah, I'll have her include you on events.
Please,
You're now
please, she
part of
was
the Stony Brook
wonderful.
English department.
Please,
You
please.
are in our group.
I want to be a student again. I miss college. It's funny. Like when I'll go to like our board meetings
Yeah.
for RCBC and Rowan, I'm like, I did actually sit. I sat in on a couple of religious studies class and another class, and I was like, ooh, like. Do you know what I mean? Just to learn something new and to learn something different, and to be able to support the professors, it was just important for me.
Yeah.
So anything that you were all
Oh,
doing, I know we're doing it online now,
yeah,
but
but you'll be
anything.
getting emails. Don't worry. I'm gonna include you in events. You're
Good.
you're an
Please.
unofficial student right now.
Oh, please. Good. Please do. And as well too, I
Yes.
may want to have you for the end of October, beginning of November. I may want to have you do something private with a couple of my students.
Oh, that
Because
would
some of
be.
them are
Oh, I
getting
would
ready to
love
go to
to.
college and
I
stuff
would
like
love to
that.
talk to them about college. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Some of
Send
them
them
are
over
trying
to me. Yeah.
they're trying to decide, whether or not they want to do a major and a minor, and some
And
of
I
them
actually
are.
started at Gloucester County College with the STARS program. Then I went to Kane. So my
You
undergrad
did
is Kane.
the stars
I did the
program?
STARS, yeah. And then I graduated from Kane, and I really loved it there because it's near New York City.
Yep. It's a
Um,
beautiful college.
it's
I was
very
there
cool.
maybe about 10 years ago. I did a benefit, a cancer benefit with a
Okay.
dance team. And
Yeah,
we drove up there.
beautiful.
I didn't realize how beautiful it was up there.
Yeah, and then I think I always say to students, yeah, I would love to chat with them just because, like you say, a 2-year program is such a good springboard,
Hmm.
right? And I always say to people that financial investment, especially now, be prepared for your future, how you're financing your future.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, and especially now, you know what I mean? You
Oh
don't want
yeah.
to be in more debt, and especially if you don't know what you want to do and where you want to go. Like
Yeah.
our daughter, she graduated at 17 and she took a gap year, and she was like, I don't know if I want to go to school. And I said, that's fine. I mean, she works with my husband.
Yeah.
She's learning the business,
Yeah.
and
She's
teaching.
learning. She's still learning.
Yeah, and she's a great
Yep.
teacher. She's a great with the little kids. She's so patient,
Oh, that's
because
wonderful.
I can't do little kids anymore. I used to. I used to have a classes in Haddonfield. It was called Broadway Babies. This was like
Oh.
8 years ago. I miss it, but they were hilarious. They were a trip. Miss Renee, I'm like, all right, you're telling me too much information. Like they would tell you everything, at 4, 5, and 6. So mommy and daddy. Okay, you don't have to tell me about mommy and
You're
daddy.
like,
Let's focus
okay.
on.
No, that's enough now.
Yeah, but I kind of miss it because people think, oh, well, they're only 4 or 5. They can't learn lines. They can't. I'm like, oh, yes, they can. They're
Yeah.
sponges at that age.
Yes.
You know, it's like whatever you present to them, you know what I mean? And the way that you know, develop the curriculum so that, you know, I was on the floor with them and you're banging sticks and then you're doing the puppets and you know, of course you have to keep them engaged because, you know, I mean, they're, what do you call it? What do you call it? There's, you can't do an hour. You got to do like half hour, 45-minute class because
Yeah,
they
they
want
can
to
only
tune right out
absorb
after.
so much.
Yeah, their attention span. Yeah,
Yeah,
but if you
attention
make it
span, exactly.
fun and creative and you're, you know, like bigger than larger than life. And some days it was hard, but I was like, oh, I loved it after I finished with them because they don't care about black, white, whatever. They're like, hi, I love you. You know, they're just children that, do you know what I mean? That's that real pure heart of just,
Exactly.
hey, buddy, you want to play with me? Here, you want something? You want some candy? You want some gum? They don't care.
That's the kind of heart I feel we all need right now, is that type of children's energy, that love
Yes.
of people. And like, yeah, and I think, you know,
Yeah. The love of a child.
yeah,
Yeah, just
like
the innocence.
I can't solve the division in politics. Like, but I do think it takes each of us as people to just try to smile at someone or try to just say, hi, how are you? Like, empathy is something we can do. It doesn't have to come
Exactly.
from the government. Like, the government doesn't handle empathy.
No. That's taught. You know,
Yes.
it's within us. I believe that it's within us when we're born. It's you want to be friends with everybody, right? I mean, those are the two things in life. We want to be loved and we want to love.
Yes.
That's it. And it, you know, and it's as we get older, it gets harder. But my thing is as well too is that and it's okay for us to agree to disagree.
Yeah. Like, I can say, you
I'm
know,
not
I
gonna
don't
put
see
you
your
down or
point
be
there.
rude to you.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you can say, I don't see your point there, but I respect you, and we're going to leave it at that. I
Exactly.
think,
Yeah,
yes.
that's
Yes.
what I'm saying.
And I
Yeah,
think we need to, like, yeah, cultivate more of those conversations.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, kindness, respect. I mean, just the you know, humility and just because I mean, okay, fine. Yeah, we may not agree and we may believe in different things, but that doesn't mean that you're less of a person or I'm less of a person
No,
just
exactly.
because we don't agree or because we're not the same color.
Yeah.
What's that? Or not speaking the same language. What's that? I mean, that doesn't, do you know what I mean? To me, that never made sense. And I
And,
think
yeah,
as well, too, it helped me by being, when I was really young, living in different countries, like
yeah, that
literally
really
foreign
shaped
countries, like
you.
Japan. Like I'm like, all right, I'm in Japan. I have to speak Japanese. Okay. And everybody's coming up to me and they're Kokojin. That means brown. That means, you know,
Yeah.
a dark foreigner. Gaijin is an American foreigner and Kokojin because that's the color of my skin. I didn't get offended. I was like, okay, great. Nobody looks like me where I live. So when they would ask me questions about my color and what, I didn't mind talking about it because it's better to educate than to
Yeah.
say, why are they staring at me? Well, because I do look different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's an educational moment.
Yes.
You're right. And I think most people don't want to offend others. Like, I really don't think most people want to, you know, walk on top of others and try to be aggressive. Like, I do think most people are curious people. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And it's that type of healing, though, right now in the country, I think comes from the arts. They have so many lessons for everyone.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That too. And then, but then everybody still has to take their own individual responsibility
Yes. Yes.
for and it doesn't matter. I mean, I get it. I mean, you know, my family, you know, they came, you know, their ancestors came down from Maryland and escaped slavery to come to Philadelphia in this area, Mount Laurel. So I know my family history. I get it. But do you know what I mean? It's like you have to know your history too, and you have to be able to understand. And not everybody knows like their history. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? They can only go back but so many generations and say, "Oh wow, well we're different." Okay, that's cool, but hey, how are we the same? Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Or do we like the same things? And then, you know, in Europe, I remembered people were like, "Oh yeah, well I'm Italian and Greek." Or I'm German and this, and they were proud of their nationalities. You know what I mean? Because they
Hmm.
were from different parts of Europe. That's what I noticed. And then here it's like, are you black, white, or other? I'm like, I feel bad for the Hispanics and the Spanish people here. I feel bad for the Eskimos and the Native Americans because they go white, black, other. I'm like, okay, well, white's not a race, black's not a race, and other's not a race or an
Yes.
ethnicity. But it's not an ethnic group. Like
Yes.
you know what I mean? It's like, and we're American, so we're all mixed, and we all have the. But I remembered that when I was in Germany, and people would, if I would travel to different places, oh, are you French and African? Are you this and that? Oh no, I'm this. Oh, cool. Because they were just curious as to what country or where I came from or what was my background. But it's not like, what are you? My
Yeah.
daughter used to get asked, what are you? She's like,
Really?
I'm a person. Like, she was 4 or 5 years old. She's very light skinned, like my husband, Spanish with curly hair.
Mhm.
What are you? You don't ask a child,
No,
what
you
are
don't
you?
ask that. No, no. But again, I think what always I enjoyed growing up in like a metro area, especially by Philadelphia,
Right.
like I was exposed, especially at the rock school, most of it was all boys
Yep.
in that dance class, and actually many were people of color.
Yep.
Like most were actually either Black or Latino ballet students. So
Yep.
like, I would have conversations with them, and here I am coming from Washington Township, right? More bedroom suburbia.
Right.
But like there's some diversity, but it's
Right.
not like Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And but at the same time, I think it all starts with a conversation, right? It all starts with respect and just asking, like, oh, can you tell me more about yourself and your
Exactly.
background?
Yeah, and it can be that easy.
It
And
can.
usually we learn that a little bit in school when you're younger, and then we usually learn that from our parents as well too. If they're like, "Hey, you can play with so and so, they're a nice kid. They're not," and your parents wouldn't care what color they were, just as long
And
if
it
they were a
comes,
nice person.
yeah, and it also comes from knowing my history. Like you say about history, my like ancestry, it's British, German, Czech, Hungarian, Italian, Jewish. Like I'm
Cool.
a mix of so much that I've embraced, like, oh, let me learn more about that, and
That's so cool.
right, and be open to just learning.
Yep.
And yeah, but I think you also have to be ready to do that.
True. True. Yeah. And you know what? If you see people, and it's interesting because if you see people in your lives, like whether it's your parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles, be able to do that when you're young, like at an early age, you're like, yeah, come on, so and so, come over my house.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't going, oh well, he's not brown like me, or she's not. I didn't. We didn't really care because our family's already been mixed for like 4 generations, so it's not a big deal. But you know what I mean? So for us, it was like, oh yeah, cool. I still have cousins that live in Germany, and I have friends that are from Japan that are mixed, and da da da.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Like you
Like
were a
this.
true cosmopolitan family.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's weird because when I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, we are. And then, and then with my husband and I, then, what's it, his background, with the Spanish from the Basque Mountains of Spain, and mom's side of the family from Puerto Rico. And then they got some Mongolian in there
Oh
from
wow.
Asia
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah. They're a mix. It's a
it's like
mix.
this whole like eclectic, yeah, but for me, I always found it fascinating, even though when I was little, I always knew I wanted to travel the world. Like I was
Yes.
like, oh, I want to travel the world and see, because I'd watch like National Geographic and all these, like the nature, whatever was it,
Mhm.
what was it, the Mutual of Omaha and the Wild Kingdom, and oh, where's that? And I don't know where it is, but hey, I'd like to go there one day, and but I wanted to go there and sing and perform. That was me at 5.
That was your
Mommy, I'm gonna
goal.
go there. Oh yeah, all I knew at 5, 6 years old. Mommy, I'm gonna sing with Mickey Mouse. Mommy, I want to go to Disney. She was like, "Would you leave? Just whatever, just go away." like every day, I had like something to tell her that I was gonna sing somewhere, or I'm gonna go on a boat and travel. But I don't know why, but I don't know. But them being educators, and me loving geography and world history and world civilizations and learning about, that's probably why.
Yeah.
I think, and then my family heritage, all the roots are from all over the place. So, oh, different language, different cultures, different foods. I was like, why not? I'm like, wow, I'm in my 20s. Yeah, let's experience this.
Exactly.
Right? No kids, no nothing. That's when you do it, when you're
Yes.
young.
I agree. That's a good, yeah, that's a good place to end, I think, definitely. And this has been wonderful. I hope you have a good rest of your night, okay, Renee? And definitely, I'm gonna keep in touch with you. Send any private students you want if they want to talk
Okay,
to me about college.
good.
I'm all ears.
Great.
I'll
Okay,
answer
good.
any questions they have.
I will, because there's a few of them that may want to go, out. Well, and like I did, they want to go to New York.
Yeah, because I
And
had
I
also toured some New York City colleges. I actually was going to do musical theater at Pace University. That was
oh,
like, but then once I discovered that I was really interested in literary studies,
Mm-hmm.
and teaching as a professor. And I've always, you know, I've always thought about, I can still audition. Like, it's not like those doors have closed.
Nope, they haven't. No.
No.
And especially as you're getting older too. And if you want to do straight plays, legit play, you can do whatever you want. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, the old heads are like 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. They're like, oh, I'm going to go back and do a play. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
could pick and choose.
Yeah.
You could,
You're right.
that's dreaming. That's continuing to dream. Never put a, and I learned that when I went to California, LA. Don't put, what was it? Don't put a time frame on your dreams.
Yes. That's
Like
it.
I'd be like, oh, but I'm a mom now and I'm 40 or I'm 50. It's too late for me. No, it's not.
No,
You're
no.
never too old to dream a new dream. That's C.S. Lewis. You're never too old to dream a new dream.
Yeah, I like your C.S.
And,
Lewis
and,
quotes.
and me too.
They
And to
keep me
plan.
going. Keep going with that. I tell you, I'm watching everything you're doing. It inspires me, Renee. It really does.
Oh, good. See, you know, and for me, I know I do it to inspire myself, and then I know I do it to inspire others, and especially now,
Yeah.
because, you know, if you start getting into that COVID head, I can't do this, I can't do that, then you're watching the news and the negativity and the hate, and then before you know it, look, you're going down, and I'm like, oh no, let's, continuing to try to eat as best we can, stay
Yes.
healthy. Do you know
Yes.
what I mean? I'm like, look, we need to open up the gyms and the yoga places and the health food markets. We need that because we need to stay healthy. You know what I mean? If we're going to fight, physically fight the COVID, but then mentally as well and emotionally, we need to stay uplifted. We can't
Yeah.
just start because then it just gets negative and nasty. And
Exactly.
I don't like it. You know what I mean? I try to
No, I
stay
know.
away
I know.
from
I
the
try
negative
to.
Nellies.
I also learned too. Some people, if there are people who are bringing me down, it's okay for me to say, I need a break.
Yes. Yep. You said
Yep.
it goodbye. I love you, but nope. And you
Yeah.
can love somebody. I mean, and they can even be in your own family. Seriously,
Oh
close
yeah,
to you.
and they are. Some are in my family.
Me too. And I'm like, I love you, but no. I love you, but gotta go. Like we're not gonna have this discussion or we're not gonna have this argument. I love you, I respect you, but no. Yeah. Oh yeah, sometimes you have to. You
Yes.
have to. You have
Yes.
to,
You have
guess
to
what?
continue to keep
Healthy
yourself.
boundaries.
Yes, exactly. And that keeps you uplifted. Yep.
Because you know what? Guess what? As we found out from COVID, life's too short.
Yes. That's a
Life is
lesson.
too short.
That is a
And it's
lesson.
like, oh no, nope, nope, no, the boundaries have to stay up because I
Yep.
need to stay focused on what I'm doing in this household for my husband and my teenagers and my family and my students and whomever else. The ripple, you know how you do, you do the ripple effect.
Oh,
Whoever else, you have a huge responsibility. You have yourself, and then you have your family and your extended family and friends and your students.
yes.
You have your students. They're the future. They're the next generation. There's nothing more for me. Like there's nothing more amazing than that.
And the
Is that you're leaving a legacy. It's
Yeah.
not just about you anymore. You're leaving a legacy of pouring into and developing this next generation. Wow, how awesome is that?
It's
That's a blessing.
amazing. Well, thank
I'm
you.
so proud. I'm so proud of you. I want to cry. You don't even know. I am so super proud of you, Andrew, and
Thank you.
all that you've done, and all that you've accomplished in the short amount of time. And you're still so young. I love that. You have that fire and that passion, and your parents have raised you well. You've always been smart. I knew that, and talented. But now to be able to do what you were doing and teach the next generation, I'm sure your
Aw.
students love you. I'm
Aw.
sure they do.
Aw, thank you, Renee. Well, I hope you have a good
Because you're
night.
walking you're
Yeah.
walking your walk. You're walking your
Yes.
talk, and you're giving
Yes.
back
Yes.
instead of going, do this because I said so. That doesn't
Yeah.
work. That's old
No,
school.
no,
That
that
don't work.
doesn't work. They're gonna tune you out. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, I'm sending a lot of love to you and your family. Have a good night. And I will
You
I'll keep
too.
you updated with the video and I'll send it to you once it's ready.
Okay, please
Okay.
do, Andrew. Have a great
Okay. Thank
night.
you.
All
Have a
right,
good
you
night.
take
Bye bye.
care.
This was
Oh,
bye bye.
love you. Bye.
Love you too. Bye
Mwah.
bye.